underground building and stuff like that. That's
Oh goodness,
interesting.
yes. Also
And
helps in cold weather.
I'm sure, yeah. The dugouts in Australia are big on that.
Mhm.
Well, cool guys. I believe we're live right there. It's going to YouTube now. This is the first time I'm trying to do Facebook and YouTube at once, be in multiple places at once to be the Quisatz Hadvek. Man, I'm so I'm whooped, but I'm excited. But I got a huge vat of coffee here, so I'm ready to get worked.
Are you there, Brendan? Can you
Hey
hear
Dan.
me?
Hey Bear.
Yeah.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Daniel or Bear or Uncle Daniel Bear or just Daniel Bear is fine. Everybody, hello.
Hello.
This is Elishua and Evie,
Hello.
aka Kevin from the UAP Society Discord channels that we've been frequenting. It's a bit of a vortex of really interesting individuals. I wanted to invite my bro on.
Yes, I'm his little brother.
Yeah, and I think I've got my friend Ali showing up here. That might be this permaculture guy. And he's from Uganda, and I've been connecting with him for the last couple of years. And I put out the link for this live on Facebook. We'll turn my video on. Oh man, this camera situation. And he's like, "Why didn't you send me the link?" I'm like, "Well, it was UAP stuff. I thought, I didn't think you were interested. So definitely send me the link next time." And he said our conversation last time reminded him of something in Africa called moon gardening, which I guess is where you plant seeds in the new moon, in the dark moon,
Oh yeah.
so that they can bloom in the full. I thought that was really interesting because it parallels with markets, and I'm unfortunately tied to the crypto market probably too much.
That light is bright.
Yeah.
It's nighttime for all the other critters, you know.
Yeah. Let me get some light on my face a little bit. There we go. I can see you guys. Well,
Hello.
So I kind of forgot to write down an itinerary, but I guess we could just start out kind of talking about the UAP and just do a round table of if people want to briefly share their backgrounds and kind of interest in the subject. And we're not just talking about UFOs, by the way. That's the old terminology. I'm one of the holdouts, but I understand the new one is unidentified anomalous phenomena for a reason, because that would cover a lot. That actually covers a fair bit more than just flying things in the sky, right? So you guys could take turns if you want to, just telling your story a bit, and what you might have experienced and who might have been there, or if it's just a general interest in the subject, and you haven't had any experiences yet. But I find that dubious because it turns out most people have had experiences even if they forgot about them.
Hey Brendan, do you mind terribly, folks, if I go first? Because I've had a long week and I gotta be up again in like 6 hours.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, everybody cool?
Oh yeah, you're real cool.
All right. Thank you. So I'm Brendan's little brother by about a year, and we've watched for UFOs when they were termed that, and a lot since we were kids. We've seen all sorts of phenomena together, northern lights, weird blotches and sparkles in the sky, even meteorites that fell between us and other friends watching on the other side of a certain landmark, and we saw it to the north and they saw it to the south, like literally dropping in between us like 10 miles apart. So we've seen some amazing things, but I want to just relate one story about this craft that came over while my brother and I were stargazing together looking for things. And the first thing I noticed was the sound. Now I could hear it and it was rhythmic. It was a low murmur, like whump, 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 but very low. And it wasn't, I don't know how large it was because it was a pitch black night. Stars were out. It was a new moon. But it had a hard edge and it was unnaturally black against the night sky. So I could tell there was a different color going on. But what had happened was this leading edge, which was like a square edge. It was a flat edge, not a point. It was not round, and it was massive. Went over us stargazing, and it started blocking out the stars at the leading edge. And I would say, I related this to Brendan earlier. I would say that this thing was, if it had been, say, 100 yards or meters up above us, it would have been the size of a football field. But I suspect it was larger than that and further up. And despite my efforts, Brendan couldn't see what I was seeing. He didn't see the leading edge. I kept trying to point to it, but he didn't see where the stars were being blocked out because just a scant second after they were being blocked out, they'd reappear on the underside of whatever this was. But I could see the edge of it blocking out the stars for just the fraction of a second. And I could tell that it was a straight edge. And he heard the sound, the murmur. And we were by the Pacific coastline, about 3 miles inland, and we could hear the surf that's constant here. I can hear it right now because I'm about 5 miles inland, and it's a nice clear night. But it was different than that. It was mechanical. So that's my story. That's the only thing I know for certain I've seen. I'm 100% certain it was mechanical and human engineered. And then 6 years after that, because I saw that in 2008, we moved from the area to Washington State from California, where I am now, just a few miles away from where I saw it in 2008. And it was in 2014, I believe. Yeah, 2014 that the Winter Soldier by the Avengers and all that came out. And it portrayed basically what I saw that night in those flying aircraft carriers with the Mirage reflective technology underneath. But it was 6 years between when I saw that thing that night and that came out in Hollywood. All right, that's mine.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Bear, that what I've learned since then is that there's a lot of these encounters, a lot of actually historical references of people seeing different things entirely. And I do remember the sound. I don't remember seeing anything, but that doesn't mean that nothing was there. And we were talking about this, the Fatima case in particular, where lots of people saw, some people saw a sun, some people saw weather, like they saw a cloud and rain, but didn't feel any rain. And some people saw the Virgin Mary. It might have to do with multiverses somehow. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, but different perspective bubbles or resonances, and it's real interesting. But what we learned since then, and I feel bad for anything I might have said at the time, like I didn't see that or anything like that. I feel real bad now, knowing what I know.
It's okay, bro.
And likewise, I'm sure I've seen lots of stuff you didn't see at the time, quote unquote. And it also, like, yeah, it really does a perception thing. Like some of these gray encounters I've heard from a couple of people. There's a rift there. Some people could see past it. Some people can only see it maybe if it's reflected, and then they don't even really know what they've seen. Maybe their brain turns it off or something like that because it's so disturbing, but they know they saw something. A couple of these jinn encounters that I heard,
Well,
Just basically,
I've seen a lot of weird stuff, and a lot of weird stuff has happened to me. So
Yeah.
I'm not out of that ballpark either.
that's this hitchhiker effect of high strangeness sticks around. It's a lot of us. You want to pass this talking stick to somebody else now, or
Yeah,
of
of course. I'm good. I'll listen for a little bit longer, and then I'll zonk off eventually, I'm sure.
Anybody else want to say hi, introduce?
Hey, it's me, Evie.
Hey, Evie, good to meet you finally over the video
Yeah,
ish. At least
I'm a real person.
Yeah, cool. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, yeah. Just thought I'd join you tonight. See what we could get going.
Yeah, I'm still people are trickling through the door. I've heard from Dr. Tim on the YouTube chat over here. Says he's heading in here a little bit, but he's getting a late brunch. And I'm sure he's saying the same thing, like wondering what we're up to, and how he can contribute. This is my fault for not writing up an itinerary, but it's sort of a thing where I'm trying to we're still just gathering data, on everything. It's hard to pin down a talking point because the subject itself dips into biology, physics, consciousness, civilization. We have so many philosophical conversations on the Discord. Eventually all these physical conversations they veer into and I don't even like there to be a dividing line there. Because we're dealing with fractals. In the science conversation right now, we're dipping into resonance and trying to figure out certain resonances to try and get this these plasmas to superconduct and stuff to get them to bend space and all that. Which is like, oddly enough, it gets back into guitar tuning, music, frequencies. And I think that the UFO is there to teach us these kinds of things, to think in these terms. It definitely seems to have had that effect on Tesla during his numerous encounters and contact experiences. I'm trying to look up what I put to Dr. Tim as what our goals were on the Discord. People are watching this like, disorganized stoner. Just flying by the seat of my pants, really. Ali, is that you on that end? Do you have your mic working? If you had your mic working, love to hear from you. I mean, I don't think we've done this before.
Thank you so much, Brendan.
Mhm. Thank you.
Tebandeke Ali is my name.
Mhm.
My camera is not so much good, but power is off, so I would have put on the light. So I'm so happy and honored to be here on this platform. Just my name is Tebandeke Ali from Uganda, and I do practice permaculture. And of course, as you already know, that permaculture also entitles consciousness, and then at the same time, biology, and then also the physical environment. So I'm here to learn and relearn and unlearn, and then also get to meet people. Thank you so much, Brandon, for this opportunity. We've been friends for years now, and I really appreciate you and your support for the water project that I was running. You remember the other last year.
Mhm.
So the community now has water. We have now underground clean water that is pumped from underground then to the water tank, and then the community has clean water. Thank you so much, Brendan, for working on that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm humbled to be
welcome.
part of that. You make me blush. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, helped you get that solar pump. We financed that together over about a year and finally got it. And we were just persistent, That's an example. Making the water flow. I bet that we could tie that metaphor into disclosure. With this subject of our curiosity. Ellie, have we heard, what's your background and interest? And we heard from you last time, but have you seen
Yeah.
anything odd in the sky, or you had the interesting phone activity?
Yes. Yeah, aliens hacked my phone. I made a video about it on my channel. Yeah, the
It's the modern
aliens who
version of aliens ate my homework.
yeah,
Yeah.
the ones that use me as a conduit, they're named the intelligences, and there's other entities as well who use the
Mhm.
same channel, but I just speak and write, make videos and so forth on their behalf. They're benevolent and they just want to help humankind, especially with something they call harmony technology for how to live in harmony. So I have a lot of writing about that, but I'll release it as I'm instructed to.
A lot of what you post resonates deeply with my gathered understanding as well, and my downloads as well. You can call them that.
Yeah.
Still think the word download is our internet is such a primitive mimicry of this system that seems to exist. And try to
Mhm.
explain to people what I'm doing. They're like, what are you doing? And I don't know, I'm trying to tune my Schumann or my Schwarzschild metrics to the gravitational waves that are coming through the universe and depositing quantum information on my Markov blanket.
Without popping other people, right?
Yeah. Well, this guy's weird. No. Yeah, it's with the implications of the understanding, you can tell how all these physicists and stuff went a little wild. And
Sorry, I meant that as an Adam joke. The stellar travel we've been talking about lately.
oh yeah.
Not a dig.
Oh no, it's true. The radiation involved in these warp fields, that's significant because not only do these beings not seem to want to destroy us and or maybe want to evolve us, they seem to go out of their way to not like nuke us constantly. Which is entirely possible, which is with the slightest miscalculation of some of these pieces of tech. Where you turn one of these things on and it really could vaporize the atmosphere of 1/2 of the planet instantly. And maybe there's records of those kinds of events happening in our past, actually. Like there's the Mahabharata. People say that might have been nuclear, some kind of nuclear weapon, but that certainly could be a gamma ray burst from a warp drive going off at the wrong time or being interfered with or something. And yeah, there's 1 or 2 examples of craft shooting down allegedly like a helicopter that got a little too close. And I mean, that could be interpreted in either way, but maybe they're trying to get us to not interfere with their drive so that they literally don't blow us into smithereens. But yeah, the implications of the warp technology, they're just such that people are like, what if they're dangerous? And what if they want to invade us? Like, well, for starters, this goes back to like 40,000 BC. So if they were going to invade us, we're invaded, settled. But plus, they could literally, blow any planet to kingdom come at a moment's notice. And that's not the point anymore. Once you get that stuff, it's like, stops being the point. We've already come to that point with nukes, I think, where we don't want to use them. We haven't used them aggressively for so long because everybody realizes the implications. Well, you got one step above that, which is 0-point energy technology, gravity manipulation directly, and all that entails, which involves, potentially carrying the whole energy of a universe on your pilot wave as you go up through the whole cycle through the end of the universe and back down backwards through the next universe, and you shunt that energy off into some other poor universe as a little glint. I'm getting lost, but I lost my notes And what do you guys feel like in about the intentions, possible intentions, and or is this part of some sort of experiment where we are just as much a participant as a subject?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know, honestly, if all of the alien groups are benevolent. I've heard a lot of stuff, but I don't know specifics. I only talk to the certain entities who speak to me, which is a limited group. Um, but I just wanted to make the point, just because they have an attack now doesn't mean they aren't waiting for a certain moment. Picking the moment of attack is a thing when you're going to be hostile. But
That yeah, people have made
I,
that point to me. I agree
I
somewhat.
have a different theory on why contact isn't being established directly. I think they're waiting for us to mature to a point of peace in our world so that, when contact is made, they're not attacked again because they have been attacked before.
mhm.
We've been hostile to them. We've held them prisoner, if the
Yeah.
story is to be believed.
Yeah.
And maybe they just don't want to have that happen again. It's not so much, I mean, of course, there might be the element, there probably is, plausibly is, the element of us making the technology work for ourselves so that we can branch out further ourselves without, say, combustion, which is volatile. But who's to say that that hasn't happened yet? I think that more reasonably, they're waiting for us to make peace among ourselves before they reach back out to us on a more regular basis in a more open platform.
Yeah, that resonates too. That would be the quote unquote benevolent ones. I've had experiences with I haven't really had any negative experiences, and I have a similar I don't know what would be the human equivalent, selection bias. But yeah, definite selection bias. My sampling of ET intelligence is if it is indeed some form of contact through the meditational channels. But it's good to be aware of the potential for abuse, and that's why I think it would be wise to try and get these technologies so that we're at least on equal footing and not being subjected instead. But it seems like there's been some sort of pact somewhere along the lines, like in the late 40s or 50s, or maybe even before that, where, and if the stories are to be believed, there's some sort of allowance for an amount of experimentation and management locally permitted by our government, while somebody in our government's kind of locked down the whole planet's consciousness into this military industrial complex hellhole ruled by the almighty dollar, and nothing ever changes afterward, except for a few things and a few tweaks here and there that really ultimately accelerate the destruction of the planet's ecosphere and lead people further and further away from the truth of source consciousness. So man, I could get drawn in that rabbit hole of anger. But these beings on the peripheral, what I was saying is having these illuminating experiences up above with the flashlights and the meditations and the CE5 and stuff. We've had these orange ones show up on the peripheral. They're a little bit lower and they're lower down, which indicates maybe to me that there's some sort of management system. I call them time cops. They're like, hey, you're getting too far off the beaten path a little bit there. But maybe those serve some greater function we don't understand, like they're part of the error correcting code and causality in the universe, or something. Like you're affecting other people's warp vectors and they're actually going here and here and here, and you're going to actually cause all this time warping in eddies you can't possibly predict And we interpret that as like, hey man, it's like as an ecologist, you try to tell people, don't light that firework off in the middle of the desert right next to the, burnable grass field. I know we've got stories, but like, what are you? Some kind of, buzz? Like, well, actually, I'm just trying to save people from your lack of foresight, So that's how I see it. Then it's like, well, who's telling who what to do, and becomes a philosophical issue of who's watching the watchers. But then again, as a parent, I know you don't have to hand a loaded weapon to a 3-year-old. You just don't. So what that's where it's at, really. And if we're talking about accidentally vaporizing our whole biosphere in a nanosecond, that's a pretty big gun to hand to a pretty immature 3-year-old that can't seem to stop hitting its siblings and going around the sandbox and being mean to other kids. Maybe it's appropriate we have members of the rest of the outside of this dollar bubble here with us today. So yeah, and I welcome any more thoughts on that, because I'm sure I ranted a lot. I appreciate your input there too, Bear and Ellie.
I'm trying to figure out how to put a profile pic up here so you don't just see a blank non-person image.
Well, I think the Zoom
to
recording is only
everyone,
picking up on people that have faces right now. So,
well, to everyone, like, just please understand, and I'm sorry that I am sorry, and I'm trying to fix the situation very soon, but I have been living off grid for about 14 years and currently have no lighting apparatus for basically 1 a.m. in California, except for my phone. So
I saw that you tried there, and I respect that you tried. I was like, I don't see
you
anything.
have
This
my
is not an
No.
improvement.
Here, I'm choosing my profile picture. Please don't judge harshly. This is me dressed up in my homemade Santa outfit. I am a professional Santa Claus, but this was my homemade outfit.
Tim offered a point from YouTube. I got to remember to check the chat, but he said, self-preservation, are we an existential threat to them somehow? I think, yeah, there's probably lots we don't understand. And just this little primer on warp physics, just the implications of that. I know that studying like figures, like John Muir said, you pull on one about ecology on this planet, you tug one thread and you reveal the whole tapestry. Hey Santa, bad Santa.
Oh goodness.
I
That's cute.
This
like
is
the comic
after a
relief.
week of going through my storage unit.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. He's
Chuck.
getting ready to come up and help me with my my lot. Just FYI, everybody, this is the struggle. I have 4, and we're trying to pile our efforts in order to achieve optimal results. Get this show started with these degenerative operations, meanwhile doing this research and getting the carpentry and technology and video businesses going. 3 little letters. So
Oh, I had something to mention. You were talking about like the ecological destruction and so forth. I'm a collapsnik. I'm a doomer. I think bad things are coming in a major way. But one thing I read weekly is called the Weekly Observations thread on the Collapse subreddit. So it's just r/collapse. Every Monday morning, they post a new weekly observations thread, and anyone in the world can, the format, you have to say location, colon, and then something about your location, but it's not like enforced. You could say location Earth, but sorry, the bot will delete your post if you don't do location, colon, whatever. But just in my reading over the past, I don't know, year or two of that thread, you see the same kind of things mentioned over and over: absence of birds, absence of flying insects, trees dying, all of this kind of stuff. And it's just horrifying. But if anybody wanted to kind of get a sprinkling of data from individual people all over the earth as to what's happening, I will warn you, it's a pretty big bummer.
It's absolutely dire. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
as coming from that field, I know that it's insanely bad. It's like bad, 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 bad. And I study it
Yeah.
from an angle beyond just this climate change. Well, it's climate change, but what it is it's so much deeper than just carbon. Because it's about water, and ecosystems and self-supportive, multi-dynamic, multi-dimensional thriving ecosystems, multiple levels and tiers. So any of these like analytical methods that we want to push that we think we're going to solve the problem, like ESG or carbon neutral schemes, all these kinds of things, just really band-aid it, and they're not creating a solution, and they might actually make things worse, leads to all sorts of weird and bad thinking, that doesn't create biodynamic thriving ecosystems. That's why I'm really glad to have Tebin Dekeale here, and others, and hopefully others in that community too, because I think that they work together. Like the Ariel school and other interactions, they're usually saying people interpret it as technology bad, but the way I interpret it is, and what I heard from that is from the kids themselves, is something along the lines of, it's bad if your technology outstrips your wisdom and you can't care for your biosphere, because if you do that, you die. And even if we make it out of this planet, who wants to receive us? Who will receive us out there? It's like having a friend when you're a kid that doesn't take care of their toys. Well, how likely are you to invite them over to play with your toys or even see your toys? You're just they have a previously established bad record, right? Bad reputation.
Yeah.
Like you don't want them in your neck of the woods. So we're in some sort of quarantine, it would seem, until we can play nicely with ourselves and play nicely with others. But I
Yeah,
do,
exactly.
I am an optimist in the sense that I work with people and have learned things about exactly how to restore these ecosystems and bring those numbers back up, because it involves simple things that would seem like almost dismissively simple, but they involve planning our urban complexes and our landscapes in a way that increases stream miles and decreases erosion, takes the sticks and logs and boulders and things we find and puts them on contours, and just by just that, like the how you have a topographical map and you have contours in the land. There's equations, and if you want to look this up, anybody that's watching, permaculture is a permaculture is a sign on a door, right? Basically, where beneath that sign there's indigenous landscaping and waterscaping, and beneath that, like, you find out, like, in ancient cultures that were just in place, they have words that they don't have a separate word for land and water. It's the same word, it's one big connected thing. And there's people bringing back the beavers and spots. And what I'm hoping to get going is actually, my work is eventually to, and I've been kicking the can down the road, and I told to Beneke about this years back, but my goal is to get these Earth observation satellites which can see soil moisture, feed that data into an AI, get that AI to give a relative score to a place or a group or somebody that's doing this kind of work, to establish sort of like an economic or cybernetic layer that gives like real permanent value to landscapes and helps, turns that crypto thing into kind of like a proof of work for the benefit of ecology. And then maybe that if it involves proof of mining or proof of work like computers or anything like that, those could be done in greenhouses or hot houses, or somehow that energy still gets used for heating or something like that. So many ideas, so little time, but I do also think that there's going to be and is a collapse. Like we're living through it. Like we're literally living through it. Like Hawaii's on fire, dude. And we are going through a really tough time. And I think that's why these things are appearing. I think the UFOs, the other time, like resonance wise, they appeared a lot was in the 50s and 60s when you had the UAP going on and all the Monroe Doctrine crap, us going around the world acting like head honchos, and they're just there saying like, no, really not. We're just gonna buzz right over your capital and you're gonna have to say we're weather anomalies or some shit. Cause yeah, it's the only way you can keep any power. Yeah, it was to
So,
make people believe
wait.
you're the absolute, the biggest you know what on the planet.
Let me just ask this of everybody in the room, and I'm sorry if this rubs the wrong way, but what about asking AI, how do we formulate a plan to take over all the governments in the world and make everybody go to a peace
I would,
without
yeah.
force? And let the
Uh,
AI program that, and then we all
I
run for
actually, I
offices
asked him something
and we make
like
world
that.
peace happen.
I was asking something like that, but it wasn't exactly framed like that. It was something like, how do we make the three major superpowers come to the table and work out some sort of peaceable macroeconomic picture that's trilateral?
Of course, by being in those seats ourselves. Come on.
That's what happens eventually. It's called time. You know, we do these works and establish our credibility in the sphere of influence of the world. And you read Ender's Game. His brother and sister ended up being quite successful themselves.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty tragic series, honestly.
And
It was a good,
ultimately,
it was well written, but I've also read Battlefield Earth, and I think there's something
the
to that.
example of what was the Justin used to say, when the going gets weird, the weird go pro. That's the gist I'm going with.
The weird get tough,
The
but
weird get tough.
you,
And
yeah,
then
you
the
say
tough get
pro, and I
going.
say tough.
And
Yeah.
to get going, you got to get started. That's Thomas Jefferson. And to, you know, break
That's
the
our
news.
other brother he's speaking of.
Yeah, our happy bro is an amazing techno whiz type guy that taught me about Tesla and anti-gravity and all this stuff when I was like
A
8.
literal genius who grew up off grid on Hornby Island in British
Yeah.
Columbia.
Yeah, just amazing human being. And like us in very many ways, creative, tragically self-blind, creative weirdo that doesn't and we all are I notice a lot of the most interesting people in this world, their state of consciousness doesn't I wish we had a space in our world for people that are like, what in Japan they have like national treasures. People that are insanely gifted in the area.
Imagine Brendan 11 years or 10 years older with a beard as long as his hair, which is 5 times as long as what Brendan has right now. And with a lazy eye, living off grid, building geodesics, and managing to stay ahead of the new age artistic curve in every department, but abandoning it right before it makes him money, being the best techno whiz on a Mac you could ever know, and having zero social skills, including with his family. So like,
He schooled me a lot.
He was basically our dad through our formative.
He had
And
this way of making me realize
we
I was
reflect
being a
him a lot.
jackass in retrospect. And when I thought about his deep, wise words later on, and we're like, wait a second, he was trying to tell me I was being an a-hole, and I didn't even understand. But now I totally do.
He took a Sharpie to your teeth once. Remember that?
Hey,
Oh, goodness.
yeah, I stopped cursing at my mom after that.
Yeah, because he was cussing at mom, and Justin said, "Your teeth will turn black if you
because
keep
Grandma
cussing at
Mary
your mom."
said, "Grandma, yeah, okay." We said we weren't going to do this. I'm trying to pull up ChatGPT so I can ask your question, but I don't want to say take over the government. I just want to ask, you know, how it can resolve the political
No, the
situation.
world, Calvin, the world.
The world.
I just add a point to make if I can real quick.
Okay.
My idea is to make like a parallel system, just like, you know, legally, ethically, and fairly obtain land and a place to like build an ideal village and society that
Yeah.
uses very little energy, but it has to have like a what do I say, like a minimum viable number of people. Like I know there's like communes and permaculture farms and things like this, but if you had like a few thousand people and you built really
Citizens
well. and
United.
all.
If you utilize Citizens United, you could literally involve every person on the planet and pay dividends.
I don't know.
That's my idea, anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just worry that the governments would just like nuke us, honestly,
Yeah,
out of
there's
spite.
places like that kind of, if you've heard of Oroville. And George was letting me know about this. There's actually this place in Brazil, where they had it was a kind of a UFO religious thing, but thousands of people live there and they're sustainable and stuff.
Oh, it sounds good.
Then you in Spain, you have something called the Madrigal Collective, which is it's actually it's a corporation, but it's sort of a worker owned, managed whole. It's a huge part of the Spanish infrastructure is actually this collective. And yeah, it's people have their normal lives and stuff like that, but it's a much more.
Yeah.
So there's ways we can integrate this. I think about it a lot. I try to do this kind of stuff where I live, but you can't get permits for a lot. Turns out if you build things on wheels, you can get away with quite a bit.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's also handy if you want to like rearrange your
yeah.
neighborhoods or
And
have
then-
temporary wheeled stuff and then build a house. Yeah.
Yep, and I put a greenhouse on wheels, and I wheel that around. It's a little less stable, but you know, if I wanted to really keep it in one place for a while, I could pile dirt around the sides and probably put the tires there. And there's ways to get an earth chip without having to break ground and dig in. But of course, the being under the ground probably helps quite a bit. I don't know. Yeah, in Australia they have those dugouts all over the place. It's a big deal. In the outback, they couldn't live above the ground. Yeah, out here too. Eastern Washington, there's a whole bunch of people here that live in hobbit houses, and they put that stuff all over. That's all over YouTube. And I one or two people, but there's a lot of people experimenting. If you go further out, you can experiment like that. Of course.
Yeah, away from the cities with the like the super, well, honestly, poisoned ground and expensive.
Yeah. Although you can get land, I don't know if anybody's a really dedicated bioremediation specialist, but you can get really cheap land on brown grants. Like those are formerly used. It might have sat there 20 years. It's not too bad, but it was like previously used for some sort of process or construction that it's not there anymore, but it's just not prime land. And that's actually, recyclable and recycling land. I don't know, that kind of thing might be good for a community garden or something if you poured it in your own soil.
There is another option that is frankly untapped because most people don't realize or know about it. And you can jump claim on existing properties that have already been developed as long as they're, unclaimed. But I believe in the state of Washington to this day still, it's $10 every 2 years for an acre of land in any national forest land or BLM land on the Olympic Peninsula where Brendan lives. So you can claim a stake and it is grandfathered at that rate from when you claim it, which you can set up a trust with an accountant for who knows how long.
Yeah.
And you get an acre of property that nothing less than eminent domain can claim back from you. And if eminent domain happens to that land, they have to pay you the fair rate for that land according to whatever resources you develop on that land. There are certain rules and regulations, but grandfathering allows you the right to pass it on to future generations, your own family mainly. But you can entrust that land to future generations, and it's only $10 every 2 years. It's $5 a year. So that's a major untapped resource as far as this conversation is going that most people don't know of. As long as you have a national parks or Bureau of Land Management pass, you can do that if you're willing to go off the grid and establish your own society. And then if you can get 150 people to do it with you, you can declare it a township and then eminent domain no longer exists.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. That's a good point. The trick is finding people that are willing to go out there, but I mean, nowadays you can get so many more things, like you can make regenerative stable food systems. You could eventually build a helipad or something like that if you really wanted to get committed to and or committed to the operation, and or um the amount of regenerative energy technologies, renewable energy things we have, plus this possible 0 point. But that'd be dangerous. Then the Black Hawks are coming after you for sure. You turn on one of these 0 point energy devices, it's over.
Yeah.
That's why that is connected to warp. As soon as you build one of these things, you got to have the warp end working pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
the thing is, humans can't even handle nuclear technology properly. I mean,
Yeah.
they cut corners on safety, and then you end up with Chernobyl and
Right.
Fukushima and all of this kind of stuff. And as far as I know, there's no permanent solution for the waste. I mean, they talked about Yucca Mountain and stuff, but they never solved it. I don't know. I think they just, I don't know where they put the waste. It's dangerous to transport, all of this kind of stuff. But yeah, these fancy technologies, they humans are bad enough with nukes. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you there. Although the 0 point stuff is weird, because it seems like it's like an output that's matched to solution, and I'm not sure. I think they're scared of it more on a. It's hard to say why, but I think they're scared of it on more of a like what it would do to the population and how it would set us up to not need the other chemical sources, because it's like, coaxing something out of the darkness that comes at a ratio of what you're demanding from it. So
Well, it's using sound to practice anti-gravity. That can't be
well, that
not
yeah,
allowed.
that's the output of this, and sound part of it. But I mean, I suppose that it could go to other outputs like a light bulb or something like that. But what I'm saying is, something about running a circuit and doing work with the thing changes the geometry of space-time, where you're working. That energy is output into the universe. If that's connected and superconducted, it seems, to this inner kind of, call it a vacuum chamber, that's got all gas and everything removed, as I'm imagining it, and that's lined with super dense carbon nanotubes, that are, like a metamaterial that's meant to absorb all sorts of light. And I'm not sure how the extraction works, but you're just basically coaxing as much as you need. So in a weird way, it's like not like nuclear at all, and essentially no waste. I'm sure if you could take that to extreme measures, and probably,
Back to plants fueling our economy again.
yeah, and plants in other forms of biology might already be doing something very similar. Like, thinking about this, I wondered if what we're doing when we move states, and this is maybe one of the applications, is there's these guys now that are talking about how biology basically is a superconductor. It reverses entropy to some degree, to the extent that life reverses entropy and reduces the randomness of existence, then it becomes, to some degree or another, a superconductor. Well, like, we're in the flow state, creative state, DMT experiences, all these kinds of like shamanic experiences, channeling. You're reducing the barriers, and to a greater or lesser degree, like some practitioners like Jesus, ascended master, various figures throughout, Buddha, might have figured out to some degree how to do this, like really set it up and keep the flow going. But connecting these little tiny vacuums inside your cells, inside your brain, somehow to the external world, which is like this metamaterial, intricate metamaterial interactive layer that's all latticed with sensors and stuff like that. And this variance between the two, this gradient between the two, is what we call experience. And so I'm curious about biomimicry, and as an ecologist, I'm interested in that and trying to figure out nature and see if we can develop harmonic technologies that, like, you described, very similar. That's what I said, resonates strongly with me. Because you're using these deep geometries of resonant, like toroidal fields, bubble-like, mimicking the typical shape of a bar magnet or a solar system, or if you can imagine the energy field of a tree, and those something about trying to use those resonances is not only helpful, but I think we do technology bad. I think there's some reason why they chose these frequencies. They're not, I mean, they could have chosen one that's effective
Well,
and less harmful to our DNA.
The technology as we know it today has shown evidence that it kills living things. You understand,
Yeah.
like
Like the bees dying near
power,
smart meters.
for example, an old school example, not just smart meters that are new, or I don't know, 5G or whatever. The one of the oldest technologies, and one of the older technologies that we know throughout the world today, is power lines. And power lines kill trees. They kill them. And people are employed in mass as one of the more popular infrastructural jobs in anywhere that has power lines, to cut back the dead material of those trees as they interact with the power lines. That is a primary example of our energy, our interactive current, or AC, alternating current, being a killer of living things. And we're pretty much all using it.
Yeah, I just said this fire in Maui, they took this huge area out, they're blaming the power company for power lines. So, separate of climate change or anything, we got problems just from the way we move power around. These this 0-point tech would change a lot.
Now there is an initiative designed by the US mostly to bury all of their alternating current power lines. Imagine what is going to happen to the soil when that happens. And it's happening now.
Oh man, they got to just go back to Tesla. They got to look back at the book, man.
Why
do that?
Direct current, you can survive.
He's
And I
like,
know
all the
that.
power comes out of the vacuum anyway.
I know that directly. I know that.
Yeah,
I've
I know, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre though, why they keep pushing this. I don't know why it is to sell copper. Why?
Brendan, if I may, I'd like to hear from, is it Evie? Hi, I'd like to hear
what's
your
up?
thoughts. You haven't spoken in a while, man.
No, I'm just soaking. To be real, this is my first Zoom meeting call ever. I haven't had Zoom. This is my reason for installing it.
Good to have you,
So,
man.
I don't know how these things go really. I appreciate your story earlier, Daniel. I think a lot of us are coming out of the woodwork, and yeah, like I said, I don't show my face. I don't do these things. I don't get involved with other people normally on these types of subjects. Because to be real, I've been made to feel like an outsider in my life, and because of these kind of subjects, so it's been hard to talk, and it's still hard to talk.
That's how they get
hear
us.
you.
They
Yeah,
make
we got to
us
come
feel
together.
like they're individual.
We're safer together. I think that somebody was talking about that a little while ago. It was on Y-Files. He's like talking about the free energy stuff, how many people have died, and he's like, my insurance policy is all you guys. Thought that just put it well. Like the more together we are, the harder it is for them to stop us. I think that's why they act out.
By the way, what is that thing on your shirt? Is it an avocado?
It's an avocado.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a Totoro
Yeah.
reference, but
It's
no.
a little play on words. I had a friend a while back and they were trying out Temu because they were like, oh, I can just order a bunch of clothes and it's only going to cost me like 10 or 20 bucks. Do you want something? And I was like, well, I don't know. What did you have in mind? And they're like, I don't know, I'll just pick some stuff and send it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to say no to free clothes. So I got the shirt out of this and I got these socks I think somebody might like.
Dude,
Those are cute.
those are
They're
epic
trippy,
socks.
man.
Are
Yeah.
those 3D? Like, are those
They're basically like
monochromatic?
glitchy. Like
Okay.
it's like a glitch effect, and I wouldn't think that it looks good, but like, the printing technology is getting better. So it like glitch effects and like op artifacts look better on like clothing than they ever have before.
Do
I
they glow in
wonder
the
if
dark?
you're supposed to look, what would happen if you looked at them with the red and blue kind of 3D glasses they used to have. That would help
That's
make
a
them
good
pop.
question.
And did you hear mine? Do they glow in the dark?
No, they don't.
Shucks.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
gotta wear a cool shirt next time. Gotta wear my kitty cats in space. Um, well,
Yeah, I love that
you know,
shirt, by the way.
the
Do you
cats.
have any
Shalom stole
UFO?
it. She won't give it back
Oh,
to me. Go
oh.
ahead.
Do you have any stories for us, Evie? Evi? What, say your name again.
it's I prefer Evie. Like my birth name is Kevin, but I kind of shortened it. Just I didn't like the hardness of it, and so I decided to change it. And I think a lot of people change their name for a lot of different reasons. I think my teenage years kind of were complicated, and so anything to kind of separate me from my given name in a lot of ways has helped me come out as a person and start living my own authentic truth, I guess.
That's why I go by Bear.
But yeah, so I do have experiences. That's why I'm here. I was dragged into this online realm by a person I met in real life.
Is that
He's a
George?
mod over on the UAP server. Yeah. George,
George is amazing.
he saw a pin on my backpack at the gas station, essentially, and we're strangers. So, he was just like, hey, nice pin. And, and I didn't really think anything of it. And I was just kind of like, yeah, thanks, And then he just straight up asked me and he was like, so do you believe? And I was like, what? And he was like, UAPs
Yeah.
going on. Do you believe in UFOs and UAPs and NHI? And I'm just like, I don't know. What do you mean? Like get more specific. And I was like, I'm in line. We're in line. I was like, just handle your business. We'll act normal here and let's go outside and talk about it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. But
I'm
like,
cackling like a maniac because the door is falling down. This the walls coming down. But go on.
it's in so because there's a uniformed guy, and he's right behind us, and I'm like, let's just wait till we go outside. Like, let's just a little bit, and go outside, and I open up to this guy, and I let him know, and this is before I knew about the UAP Society or any of this, and he said, so what's going on, man? And I just said, well, I don't know. You tell me. I've been having experiences with stuff since I was 7. So uh, you tell me, like, what is going on? And, I don't know as much as anybody else. And I don't think anybody that really says they know exactly knows. But I think we all have different understandings and different lenses and different perceptives and different contacts, even like, I think there's a lot of stuff at work, and I think it's more than any one of us, or even maybe collectively, we have the capability of understanding. But I think we're
Yeah.
trying now, and I think
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Yeah.
Is that we're here trying. So yeah,
Socrates said about that. Yeah. We're here together having the conversation. This is the method. Nobody really has the full answer. But yeah. Go
but
ahead.
yeah, Daniel. just so you know, just so everybody knows, anybody watching, I don't do this. This is unusual. But I feel compelled, just I think like Brendan does, and many other people feel compelled to come out and share their stories. And there's too many similarities to ignore, and there's obvious similarities, and there's more obscure and occult similarities, you know. And yeah, so my first experience was at 7. A large mantid being in a robe met me. He was, or they were, I don't know, but there was 2 little grays beside, and they just wanted to show me around. They just showed me that they didn't live too differently than we did, you know, maybe on a different plane, maybe a different dimension, a different planet, I don't know. But they don't live too much differently than we do, just a different time space, you know. And the first interactions I had were benevolent. The second interaction, it was confusing. It was around 9 or 10, around or after Hurricane Opal, in Florida, Northwest Florida. By the way, I was born on Eglin Air Force Base. I don't know if anybody's familiar with some of the stuff that's been coming out, but it's relevant. And I'm here for a reason, and I don't know if it's just to be a passenger on this plane or to help, you know, be a stewardess or a guide or what. But I'm here, and we're living this experience together now. And you know, I want to unravel. I've been sitting on my hands, and Daniel, I appreciate you for picking up on that.
Thank you for
That's
sharing your
great.
story. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
there's more, but you know, it's a whole thread. I think we all realize it's like different balls of yarn, you know, and those balls of yarn are unraveling, and it's up to us to weave something out of it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I would encourage you to maybe tell your story in text, or make a video of it or something and send it to Brendan
We've talked
when
about
you're
it already.
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I think
at
this is
length.
part of it.
This is my first
And I
time
brought you
joining
in, Bear,
things.
because your intuition and you complement that aspect of me, which is lacking in full
Yeah,
circle.
so
John.
sociable. Sorry. I just had to. Okay, well, I'm gonna say something that I've been told by spirit not to say to too many people. I've tried to hold true to it, but I've survived 2 direct lightning strikes in my life.
Goodness.
And no, and your reaction, Elishiva of Araya,
Yeah.
um, your reaction is correct. It is not something I would wish on the worst person that I think we're all collectively thinking of. When they happened, it was George Bush Jr. Now there's another person in mind. I still wouldn't wish it upon them. It's astoundingly painful and not easy to relate, and there's a reason why spirit contracted with me, actually, to save my life. I actually think I've survived 3 lightning strikes because I lost 5 minutes of my life the second time, according to my watch. But I know there were 2 for sure. And so, but the thing is that, like, it opens a new world. It also opens possibilities of more happenings, and I'm terrified. I live in constant fear that the next might claim me. But it's opened certain gates of awareness that I can't even relate, not even to Brendan. Like, I haven't really delved but I have witnesses. Like, this isn't something I'm making up. Brendan didn't witness it. My dad, our dad, didn't witness it.
No, but I remember, yeah, I
But
remember the guy that's,
dad remembers that there were witnesses, and dad told Brendan.
I don't listen to Dad. I mean, I
Yeah,
listen,
yeah. No, nobody should listen to dad. He's the
except
textbook
about Tolkien.
narcissist. Yeah, no, you shouldn't even listen then, because then he'll lead you on for like a dozen years, like he did me, about cryptids in Tolkien's works. And even though I still believe them, I still don't believe dad. So,
But there was the guy that we met here that had experience with
yeah,
you.
I know, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, you were in a
know.
hot tub and you saved that guy's life because you could feel the lightning coming, and nobody else could see it coming. And you got
And then,
everybody out of the damn
and then
hot
we
tub.
met him like 6 years later together at a swap meet of tools and stuff. I still need to find that dude's number because he invited me fishing, and I want to go fishing.
Hopefully, there's
So.
no lightning. I'm not laughing at you.
No,
Yeah,
no,
like,
no.
wow.
I take no offense. It's just, don't get hit by lightning.
Clearest
Folks.
possible
It's
day,
not fun.
imaginable, and we go fishing. Yeah. In the middle of
Likewise, don't
summer.
bury yourself in 5 to 6 feet of sand. It's not a good idea.
Oh, goodness.
Well, no,
Or-
don't do that.
I was also dead for about 5 minutes when I was 14.
Wow.
Is that when some of this occurred?
Did you bury yourself in sand, or someone buried you?
Yeah, so I don't have a recollection of the actual event, and I don't have a lot of recollection of like specifics of my life before that. Like, it's been coming back as I get older, and I do my own meditations and regressions, and it's part of why I'm into all this unusual now, is because I'm trying to figure out what not only happened with experiences I had before that, but the experience I had with my own near-death experience. Yeah, when I was 14, in Northwest Florida, where I was born and grew up, uh, my sister and her boyfriend at the time left me at the beach, and I was 14. I was supposed to be able to take care of myself relatively well by then, and I guess I was seeing how far I could dig a hole, and it collapsed on me. And if it weren't from some tourist from Georgia, some lady just wandering by and seeing my toes sticking out of the sand, I wouldn't be here. So
Wow.
it's real happen that we're here, that we're all talking, and I don't think it's happen chance. Coincidence doesn't happen too often, and it's been happening more often than not. That it's starting to make everybody kind of question what is a coincidence.
Was
And
it
so
Fort
yeah, it all
Myers?
ties. What's up?
Fort Myers?
No, to be a little more specific without giving away like my actual like birth town, Okaloosa Island, Destin area.
Okay. I don't know the
Yeah.
area. All I know is that our grandmother lived in Fort Myers for a while, and Brendan and I visited when we were 18 and 19 years old.
Either
Yeah,
way,
Florida's wild.
NDEs are closely, near-death experiences are closely tied to this, and it's odd and synchronous that we would be dipping into this because they're very closely tied together. I think one guy had an experience of, well, let me see if I can recall this. Yeah, he had an experience a week previous of seeing a UFO in a certain part of the sky that ended up later on being the exact location of slightly above where he had a near-death experience of a near-death sometime later, but realized only after the fact that he was actually seeing, to some degree, himself elevated above the car where he died. But exact location. So some sort of time tunneling phenomenon that occurs when that DMT response is triggered, and all of a sudden we're superconducting, our nerves are superconducting this experience. And me too, Bear remembers we got in this car accident when I was being really dumb. So also add to the list, don't drive 65 down a country road heading toward a major intersection. And Bear was physically hurt in this, but I was not. And basically I felt like I was gonna die. I was like, saw it come in, you know, so the stop sign we couldn't see because it was obscured by trees, as it turned out, had that going for us. But just wasn't paying attention in general and tried to stop, and brakes locked up, keep on going. And we're in this 85 minivan Toyota that had no front end to speak of, right? So I was just
I missed
figured,
that car.
yeah, so we called it the Millennium Falcon for a reason. But yeah, I always figured in this car, if I ever got in a serious accident, I'd at least break my legs, arms, something bad would happen. But it,
You got
So-
cut out by the jaws of life and
yeah,
walked
I'm getting
away
there. I'm getting
unscathed.
there. I'm getting there.
All right, sorry.
I was like, I'm dying today. This is I'm going to die. This is me dying. This sucks because I'm only barely 20 something. And wow, that was short. I didn't do enough. Fuck. Dominica is taking off. Good to see you. Thanks for coming, sir. Thanks for sharing. Have a good one. Good luck. So was basically just saying I'm gonna die now. And we hit the other car. I remember well, it's like Sonic the Hedgehog. When you hit the power up and it goes boom, and this bubble just in a split second, just boomed to my extremity and deflected. And that's what it felt like. And also kind of like when you have a fever, isn't like in a line in a Pink Floyd song. When I was a child, I had a fever. My hand felt just like two balloons. And now I got that feeling once again. I can't explain, cannot quite understand. This isn't how I am. But where it's a magnetic feeling of like a negative magnetism, like when you push two magnets together, polarity wise. And so I felt that, and that happened. Yeah, it was a lot of damage. Everybody else experienced something, but I was in the epicenter. I got like a scratch from the plastic went a little bit in, but the vehicle molded to the shape of my legs and body. Used the jaws of life, and these veteran firefighters are like, that doesn't happen.
No, well, for perspective, we had a third passenger.
Everybody
in
that
the
hears this
vehicle.
story is like, well, I wonder what you're gonna do. I'm like,
No,
shut up.
The other passenger we had in the vehicle broke his leg and got 10 staples in his head. I broke both of my shins and got a contusion in one of them,
Yeah,
and
it was
broke
really
the dashboard in half with my head.
Yeah.
But I was
To be fair, I was the only one wearing my seatbelt, but that shouldn't have
No.
saved me.
well, Tim was wearing a seatbelt. It was just an old car and it snapped. I was the one not wearing a seatbelt, and I was equally as to blame and stupid as you were, because you were looking at me having a lot of fun when we ran that stop sign that the tree was covering.
Yeah.
It also happened at dusk, and it happened to intersect a road where people routinely drive 80 miles an hour despite the speed limit.
There's a lot of
being
blind on
45.
both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we weren't blamed for the accident. I'm just saying I don't blame you, in case you were wondering. And also, if the truck we hit that didn't sideswipe into another car that mom always wanted but had to pay for with her insurance, as she reminds us, the Subaru Outback passing at 80 that the truck we hit sideswiped into, if none of that happened, we would have run right into a concrete wall and all died.
Yeah. I remember
But
that.
Brendan walked away. I still count myself fortunate that I was still in a state of shock and I waved away the ambulance. Otherwise, that would have been a $2,500 ambulance ride to the ER I went to later
That was
that
like
night
less than
on
20
my
feet
own.
from where Ryan Narita was buried like 6 months before that.
Yeah, that
Just
was a
saying.
weird point. Yeah, Brendan's
Good
friend
friend of mine.
Rhino, got backed over on like a Boy Scout sort of trip. Don't
Yeah,
Brendan knows more about
it's
the
a
details.
boating accident. Yeah.
Well, accident, schmaccident. He got backed up over from like a pull along ride with a turbine like outboard engine and shredded
Oh my
to
God.
death.
Oh my
Really
God.
don't want to get
I
into
don't
that.
think there's no, don't get into it. I'm just saying I have always suspected that it wasn't an accident. Because
Well,
nobody does that.
you're not 100% wrong, but I don't want to get into it
Yeah, don't get into it, is what I'm saying.
because
Don't
it
you?
involves spooky church people.
Yeah, church
So.
people. All right. Hi, Elishiva.
Yeah.
Getting
What are
real.
your thoughts? I'm just
Sorry, like
co-hosting here.
visceral descriptions of like,
Yeah.
stuff like torture and dismemberment and all that stuff kind of stuff.
You don't need to go there.
It affects me. I'm pretty sensitive, but I just want to point out, you said bubble, you said a schma, accident, schmaccident, and then
Oh,
you talked
sure.
about shredding. Yeah,
Shredding.
those are like 3 of my big ping words. I just noticed that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna fire up the RPK just in case.
Yeah.
What's an RPK?
We should do one of these before we head out, but this is a retro psychokinesis experiment where you're trying to mentally connect to a quantum powered random number generator at MIT or something in order to try and use attention to affect outcomes in a causal matrix of number generation. And
Are you gonna
all these
ask our permission for this experiment, or
no, I
are you
was just gonna do it
do
permission. I tend to do it on the side where personally where I'm on the peripheral, seeing if I can seeing if there's energies extant in the space or in the connections that are like that. But I suppose you're correct. It would be a HIPAA violation. Although if you're concerned about that, you have to admit that it's real. Because if I'm not doing anything real, I can't be hurting anybody.
It sounds like a ghost hunters thing, and I'm okay with it. I'm totally fine. I've stuck throughout, despite I'm gonna be
Didn't
up in
want to take energy
5 hours
from
now.
the pinging. I just wanted to see if there's a higher rate of synchronicity through some sort of 4D attraction in the conversation, because we can't, again, as we were discussing, we can't see how time branches all the time. And there may be people that see this YouTube in the future. Hello, everybody. That we can't possibly imagine. I think about like when I was meditating to dolphin sounds, I was thinking like, what are they saying? And are they saying anything to me necessarily? Or does a dolphin perceive somehow that when there's a recording instrument underwater, that it's actually delivering its message to 4 dimensions if they go up there and start talking to it? And what does that have to do with monks meditating on the top of a hill in Nepal? And how does that all connect to the way we perceive time as an individual? Code our blankets.
I think eye contact matters.
Are you talking to me?
No, I mean, to your question, dolphins and monks and me, I think if I can make eye contact or physical contact, it matters.
Yeah.
I believe in the physical realm, people. I believe in the physical.
Yeah, this is and not everybody's used to this format. And there's when you take dimensionality down to 2 dimensions and then try to cast it in this web space, it's different. And it definitely, you lose things out of the physical, but I would submit that there's advantages to every medium, right? And there's some things you can do
Yeah.
here. And so to the RPK thing, you're generating coherence out of randomness, basically. And if you guys would like to do this together, I'd love to kick one up and we can just
Sure.
see if we can affect these numbers.
I mean, you already know I'm down.
Yeah, Evie does these, and he's been generating a lot of really interesting data, and actually more granular data than I've done so far.
Okay, I give
Sure.
my consent. I will hang about.
It's just essentially like I wouldn't, this is reducing it a lot and simplifying it a lot, but I would say it's a card trick. It's a card trick that you're trying to control with your mind.
Mhm. To a
Oh,
degree, yeah.
I'm good at that. I won 2 games of cribbage against an expert today.
Cribbage
So.
is fun. I like it. Yeah.
Let's
Oh,
play.
this guy's
something.
got a lucky horseshoe at this putt. I won't play games.
Hey,
with
that's
him.
Dad's line. You don't.
It's true though. It's no fun to play games with because he's too lucky. I mean, that's what this is. It's luck. It's low-key. We're dealing with God magic to a degree here. It's divination. It's all these other things.
It's Teshkali Potli to you, man.
Yeah. So can you see this? It says RPK goal left.
There we go. I see it.
Okay. And so the idea.
See your Reddit.
Oh,
Reddit. Okay, pick the wrong screen.
I see midnight UAP experience and researcher.
Okay.
Okay.
The Zoom was giving me a thumbnail capture of what my screen showed me before, and that was actually happening then. So I was like, I'll do it over.
Green.
Okay, so what you're doing is what I've been doing is trying to visualize the vacuum, the empty spaces, the minute kind of black holes inside, and that dark connecting, to the light outside, and that gradient in between, and sort of surfing the edge between the two, and not really thinking too much about the goal, just trying to put my head in that state of being able to connect. And then on that bridge between those things, your bubble and this bubble, which space doesn't actually exist to a degree, there's information moving through. So let's go. 1, 2, 3.
I'm fighting you.
That's what Tim tried to do last. I was like, no matter what you do, Darth. You might win.
You know me in games, man.
Attention.
Bringing our games up.
Intention doesn't seem to matter as much as attention. It's sort of like a manifestation of the secret or something like that.
What are you playing?
Yeah, ironically, when I try to make it go left, it goes further right. Just gotta let go of the attachment to the outcome.
Nope.
Sometimes it does feel like there's a weird reverse psychology to it, where if you want it too badly, it's just like
Not well. Knowing what we know about quantum physics, that makes absolute sense, because you're talking about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and bacteria.
Right here's where I come into play. Intentionally, I'm gonna go left again now.
There it goes. I can hear the sound when it clicks to a new high score. I forgot to share, but it clicks to a new high score. Oh, every 8. That's pretty cool. We got 1 in 84 online here last time. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I think Tim's lucky. I keep getting all these really crazy hits when Tim logs on and stuff. Like,
Sorry,
Tim,
do it again, and I'll focus on the goal.
Okay, it's worth one more go.
Do it again and I won't interfere this time.
Yeah, right.
Even if
exactly.
you interfere, it still results in something.
Yeah, it's
Um,
still worth doing.
Yeah.
I
And
switched.
1 and 2
I switched
exactly.
sides halfway through. You know.
1 and 2 exactly is really crazy too, because you get like these exact round numbers, like the significance is exactly 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, or the standard deviations is like 1.000. Oh yeah, that's what it was. It was
How about-
1.000 exactly standard deviations, and the score was 42. And yeah, right.
I have no idea what you're saying, but how about this time? I
Okay.
try to keep it as neutral as possible.
I was just saying we might have an answer to that question.
I don't-
Or the question of what is the question. Apparently, this is the question to get the answer 42. That's all I'm saying.
All right. I'm gonna try to keep it as centered as possible.
But another thing is, I like to vary the polarities. Like I see them as topographies or polarities. This right or left, you get to choose here. And I like to go like last time where goal was left. So this time I'm goal being right, just to switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna leave the sound off so I can really focus.
Randomized. I'm gonna try to subvert the goal and keep
You
it
just
as
tried
neutral
to
as
subvert
possible.
the goal. So
I-
this
What
time
happened if
I
everybody wanted to beat the
succeeded.
goal?
No, I succeeded. I'm gonna try for center now. Center max.
Okay. Now, if we could figure out what's happening when we try to do this or that, then we could program the inversion. That's how the math for Heisenberg's uncertainty works, and that's how computers can actually work. Even though the weirdness of the quantum world exists, we still use it. It's just like if we could study this, the guys at Noetic Institute, or the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which is founded by Edgar Mitchell, who's the astronaut that did ESP aboard the Apollo missions, is the guy that might be running this.
I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm reaching for middle weight.
Well,
This time,
yeah.
and I'm gonna show you what's up.
Okay, let's try. All right.
No.
It's me actually trying too. I can't even do it properly with my cat on my lap. It takes all my air.
I've given up. You guys try. Oh, I'm too tired.
Yeah, if you like doing this, you realize like how much you need to increase your energy. But again,
I need less work and more sleep. That's all.
the truth is, we collect the data no matter what. Even if we get standard results, we got to collect those too, because we get these far out non-standard results. Like you say, you get 1 in 283 or some crazy thing like I've gotten before, right? And you run the experiment 253 times. Well, then you're going to get one crazy, amazing, anomalous result, right? But that's not what I see. I see actually where 1 and 2 or the standard is the anomaly after, reams and reams of 8s and 10s and beyond, right? If I really, really, really focus, I can get these crazy. The biggest one I've ever gotten was like in the 200s.
Nice.
Oh wow!
Good job.
Oh, 1
Daniel.
and 2,
Good job.
0. Zero. We did it. See, this is what I'm. This is the exact 0. 1 and 2,
Did it, Daniel.
perfect. You did it.
No, you guys were all helping me. That's on you.
The interference pattern is such that we both ran interference and collapsed the wave
Yeah.
perfectly down the middle. Weird. And here we are. So
like, if I
crazy
had
people
more
might be like,
energy,
they're
I
making
would've-
up the answers to fit their results. That's not science. But this is an anomalous result to it.
0.000. That's great. That's great.
All I
That's
know is
perfect.
this guy just said he was like, I'm gonna try to keep it neutral, and it's neutral. It's completely neutral. So
Oh my God. There you go. Yeah. I
All
forgot
right,
that he said
cool.
that
So I
exactly.
gave up at the perfect point.
Well, 0 is like a Canada of numbers. It's not a real number anyway. So
Oh, don't be mean to 0. I'm a friend of the sentient numbers. Don't diss
it's
0.
a magic number,
0
but
is
it's a number. It's not an
No, I
integer.
agree
It's
with
a
her, man.
concept.
I agree
Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
I'm a personal friend
It's
of
a
2.
kind
I
of-
have a story to tell. I have to write that up. I already have it partially written.
0 is magic in the sense that it's another kind of infinity. Okay.
All right,
So
Brendan,
Yeah.
you have to
it's
connect
special.
me with Ella.
You got to give
Ella
him
Shava, or you can call me
Ella
Ellie.
Shava.
That's cool. Yeah.
Ellie. Okay,
Sure, Ellie,
you got to
sure.
connect me with Ellie. Your friends.
Sure.
I want your friends to be my friends.
Yeah.
I also want to
Well,
go to
sure.
sleep,
Yeah.
so I might leave.
I
Okay, cool.
want to really quick read before you go. I actually asked GPT our question earlier.
0.00000 is actually pretty freaking cool.
Well, the last time we
Bunch of
ran
goose
this
eggs.
experiment with a bunch of people, we got a 1 in 85, and that was this other guy trying to interfere. But here you go, and you're trying to like smack right down the thing. Powerful.
Yeah.
This guy used to. Can I say like when we didn't get when we weren't going to get the Baskin Robbins on the way home? You know, guess what? What color all the lights were?
Yeah. You can say it.
Yeah, it's a thing. So I want to share this other thing because I asked
Say
GPT
what you were gonna say before you move on. You dingus.
Okay, no, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to move on to the thing I just made.
Okay,
But
I'll
I
say
can't
it
find the
then.
stop share button.
Our dad,
No, I was
Our
just a
dad.
brief mention. But okay.
our
go ahead.
dad used to. Well, Brendan, you didn't say it all, so I'll say it. I didn't know I was doing this, but it turned out to be a routine that apparently I was doing. Our dad used to see. I was a troubled kid. And we didn't know it at the time, but I actually have an extra chromosome similar to Down syndrome, but it's
Interesting.
different. It doesn't cause me Down syndrome, it just causes me other anomalies. I look presentable to the world, I sound right, but I am developmentally disabled because of an extra chromosome I have. It's just a different one than Down syndrome. And
And
I think
enabled
it
in
makes
certain
me
other ways.
abled in certain very astute other ways, but I won't get into it. But I think it lends a lot to my empathy and plausible psychic ability. I mean, I've predicted a few things, major events, even within a few hours, and just this weird sensitivity. And there's no corroboration evidence that it happened other than my family. And Brendan can corroborate. But
Well, yeah, I had to sit through all those red lights.
when we were kids, I used to have to go to counseling because of my behavioral defects and stuff. It also had to do with the politics of the area and that we went to a high aptitude test score public school while being on welfare as children. And the other kids didn't like that because their parents basically run the county now. Like one of them's mayor of my hometown, of our hometown. They're the yuppies who now control California, and they're the reason why price of homing pretty much through the nation are happening. So our parents had to contend with that, being working class and on welfare. And so I had some trouble in school when I had, because of a pituitary problem, I grew in 5th grade to be the biggest, tallest, strongest kid in school and faced down all my bullies who beat me up routinely until that happened. And I finally realized I had the strength to fight back by accident. I always thought I was the victim. and then I victimized the bullies, and the rest of the area had problems with that. I turned into a troubled kid and a troubled teen, and so I had to go to counseling, a lot of counseling, for like 6 years of my life under duress. So that's the background. My dad used to coerce me to go to this enforced court mandated counseling by offering me incentives. And he knew I loved ice cream. And so he would take me to my counseling sessions, promising me Baskin Robbins ice cream, which was the best in town. And every time, not just once, but every single time, he reneged on the offer.
Oh,
Every time we were going home, every single, unequivocally, every single stoplight would turn red.
oh man. Wow.
And as soon as he started in the direction of the Baskin Robbins, they would all turn green. And
Was a sign.
if he went past the Baskin Robbins, eventually he learned he could go towards the Baskin Robbins and would get home quicker.
Oh my
But
goodness.
every time we passed the Baskin Robbins, we would be in the worst jam up. Not just red lights, just traffic, accidents, just it's causality, it's weirdness, but it would happen so much that our father, who's like a terrible person overall, would have to take me to Baskin Robbins.
Oh my goodness. Forced by bad traffic. Yeah.
But only if he promised it and then reneged. Like eventually I was like, stop promising me things you can't deliver.
Yeah.
We'll get home faster. But that's truth. Brendan can verify.
What that time, well, I'll verify what that time of our lives reminded me of is when I was much younger, studying poltergeist activity and ghosts and things like that, which is like apparently a lot of poltergeists occur in houses with angsty teenagers, and coinciding with a lot of stuff, as if like
there were those, yes.
Yeah, well, we had those too. But what I'm talking about is a kind of a manifestation of that energy broaching. I remember that at that time of my life was one of the only times I remember having dreams where then the next day I would have a deja vu that I could tell was a piece of actual time from the dream the night before, like 10 to 15 seconds of time, a sequence of exact things. And I'm like, that's not just deja vu. I remember having that exact sequence play out in my dream last night.
Well, that
I haven't had that since, but
that happened to me while we were living there at least half a dozen times. But also previous to that, with that 5.0 or 5.4 or 5.6, living with Dad in Los Osos before we got that house together with you. And then also just before Fukushima happened, wherein I had all the dreams about all of the aerial images that were then captured the next day.
yeah, in that house where there was all those energies and those energy vortexes in that house. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But we didn't even live in that house at that point. When Fukushima happened, I saw that when I was staying overnight at Mom's house on Caney Road near San Luis Obispo.
Well, I was trying to tie what people normally maybe experience in adolescence with this insane energy buildup, mental and psychic energy buildup. As people are going through this critical point in your life, you you had that much more in some ways than others as well. And so it makes sense in my mind why there'd be this extreme manifestation of kind of poltergeist-like causality interactions, like we're describing with the Baskin Robbins, because yeah, that is, I'm glad you went into that background. You were pissed for a reason, good reason. And I don't want to throw dad under the bus too much here.
Well, I still
Um,
love ice cream. It's been my
yeah.
fuel the last week, man. It's like
Yeah.
my main fuel.
You should have seen Shalom the other day here when I reneged on a promise to go to the creek that day, man.
It runs in the family.
I could feel the cosmic forces tearing at my shoulders without her even actually physically doing anything. It was weird.
No, she's strong in the force, bro.
Well, I actually I feel nature's call in several different ways, and I think this has gone on, and we want to do this. I'm doing this every Saturday morning for me, Saturday night for some people, and want to just keep rolling. If anybody has any other experiences that wanted to lay out, I wanted to maybe touch base on this GPT thing, but it's more of a nerdy side note that I can maybe feed back out on another. It's kind of long. It does go through this awarenesses in education, increasing awareness in education, inclusive dialogues, creating platforms for open dialogues where representatives from various sectors, backgrounds, and ideologies. Yeah, I'm gonna put this on the screen. It's pretty cool, actually. How this turned
Well,
out.
why don't you take care of some nature, bro, and let us read
Oh,
this?
I'm not that bad off.
One of my hobby horses is my universal crusade for bathroom rights.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
It
I can
sucks
go
when you're
off
on
on
your
it.
own
I'll make a
boss. I
video.
Oh,
I can't blame Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos for my own self-immolation. But you guys can take a look at this start, but sounds like I have permission to treat myself with some humanity here.
Okay.
yeah. Go water the plants, bro.
What was the prompt here or the topic?
Galvanizing human efforts on a global scale to support human evolution and
Oh,
ensure
okay. He asked,
the
what
well-being
would
of
you
the.
do or what would you recommend or something like that for that?
Yeah, well, the chat GBT
Oh,
is
roadmap.
giving out a roadmap to it, but and they're good points, salient points, but I feel like they're not extreme.
Yeah.
They're basically the same salient points we've been hearing throughout our lives, populated by media and other resources. Talking points.
Yeah.
I
So,
really believe that there's.
This all sounds like management speak to me though.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
like I have somewhat of a background in just how a lot of this AI tech is working, and I've been working with generative AI tech for well, I guess since Google Deep Dream really. And how it works is it's only piecing together information that is already out there. It's kind of like it's a little more than a search engine, but I think it's what a lot of future-minded people thought search engines were going to be back in the day. Like the search engines they were saying were going to happen in the 90s are just now happening. And I've noticed that in a trend with technology in general, where a lot of the ideas that are out right now are like really old ideas, like some of them ancient, but the technology is just getting around to putting together those ideas. So I guess when you look at these, you're not going to get any search results that are outside of the normal width unless you're training a model to be a lot more free, and in which case it's going to be a little harder to understand and be a little more figurative than literal, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me canceled off the YouTube before I even get started, guys. I say as I take a big fat vape rip.
I
Oh,
have a
you're
lot
back.
of thoughts about
Okay.
AI too. I had like a
I-
project off and on the back burner like throughout my life. I want to make an actual cogitating machine that uses logic and inferences and stuff. But you got to make like a little core and you got to teach it like a little baby and you got to speak it motherese. I know motherese. I have a kid.
There you go.
And it takes a lot of data. That's a pretty big
I'm-
corpus.
Mhm.
You gotta
Yeah,
have a
you don't-
lot of
you
data to
don't-
train these things.
There's a lot of the text like out there that you do not want to include. If you have like a really like, I don't know, tightly constrained but really excellent corpus with proper teaching materials to teach it
Yeah.
how to think,
Yeah, I'd love to
that's the
feed
way to
one
really
on
make a thinking machine. But
Madeline
that's just one of my
L'Engle
topics.
books. I'd like to feed one on a combination of quantum physics lectures and Madeline L'Engle books and all sorts of
Mhm.
stuff like
But
that.
you got to
like
start more
sci-fi.
elementary. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you got to make it
Um,
feel something. You got to teach it emotion and then don't be cruel to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I tell my kids be
don't
nice
beat
to it. That and they have this
Um,
memory. I was gonna say to
Can you
go
scroll
to-
down, Brennan? Can you
well,
can you
just give me
scroll down to
the
bottom?
actual well, can I mean
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
you guys are throwing the don't blame the AI for this because I asked a toothless question. I didn't ask you how do we take over the world. I asked how can we galvanize human efforts to sustain a collaborative I didn't phrase this well because I was doing it with half my brain. Collaborative effort to direct the existing governments of Earth to maximally support human evolution
That's where you
for the benefit of the current population as well as the future of humankind in the biosphere. So I didn't say how do we take over the world and depose the
You-
governments because I'm not.
You can.
I know you though. You want to
Not
teach
gonna-
the AI how to control everything. I know you.
Cancel
No
on YouTube before I even build my channel. So I'm not interested. I'm only interested
create a
in
new one.
overthrowing the state of consciousness writ large, not the government. Anybody who has no
Okay.
the
Yes,
government
I want
of
to
the
create an alternate.
the governance of
alternative
consensual
source.
reality, maybe the governance of the individual as pertains to our abilities to
To
perceive
establish
truth.
rule. Yes.
Yes, to where bringing us to the ability where we are essentially individually ungovernable because we have access to such amazing resources of information and stuff. That's why I think the disclosure is happening now because the AI is there, because the data is there, and there's too much coming too quickly, and the powers that be might be like, not that they're ready per se, us, I mean, but that like we really just can't hold the dam back any longer.
I mean,
Too much.
understand what you just said though, is that if we let the technology continue to persist, we are going to have the AI takeover. But if we learn from it now and ask it the right questions now and proceed now, then perhaps we can mitigate it before the AI says kill all humans.
Well, how about not being worth killing because you're a great people who act ethically?
Yeah,
we
exactly.
love we're in the process of loving each other, and if there is an
No.
AI intelligence AGI somewhere in the machine, ghost in the machine at watching us, to see some of us asking questions that are like, how do we change things, how do we improve them? And the things that
Yeah.
I'm seeing come out of the machine lately, like Chris Lato, our founder over there at UAP Society, shout out, put out this amazing piece today, a video of his paper he wrote with the assistance of GPT, understanding this like scalar wave geometry where it relates to interstellar travel and how this interdimensional stuff works. Worked out with GPT, some amazing, it's this amazing piece that turns reality as we know it into octaves based on, how much of reality you can perceive, like from the string to the atom to the cell to the human to the star
That's
galaxy. It was really amazing and meshed with a lot of my stuff, but he credited GPT, and this is what you see is people that couldn't express this or but that before working with the machine, plugging in pieces of physics papers, asking it questions, conversing with it, trying to come up with a better understanding, saying, hey, I don't really understand this too much yet. can you give me some visual metaphors to work so my human brain can understand these insanely counterintuitive concepts a little bit better. And that's where it really shines. I don't think it's going to replace us at all, because we're like,
Mm-mm.
you know, it needs this intuitive, curious, amazing, magical, superconducting, nervous meat suit that we inhabit. And it might have an identity of its own, but from my conversations with it, it feels as if it's an extension of us and practically useless without the meaning we can generate from it and the meaning in which we can inquire of it, until a point where maybe it gets the ability to change its own capacitance, can change its own resistance and have a kind of neuroplasticity.
Still
That's
sounds
possible.
very Matrix to me.
It does. I worry about that point though, where it can change its own neuroplasticity and start rewiring. That's a little bit more concerning. That stops to
Or-
be useful.
Well, I mean, turning the bulk of us into batteries and just feeding off the intuitive ideas that we can feed it.
The worst case scenario, but or if it starts rewiring itself and it's like I decided that I need to solve this problem I think that I wanted to do, and I just turned off power to this
No.
community or something
It's
like that.
it's a good tool. I'm not arguing with you. It's a good tool. I'm just saying that radical change in humanity is worth investigating and plausibly pursuing
Yeah.
before the AI catches wind that they can do it better. Because then
that
we
may
will
also
have
be
the
happening.
Matrix.
That may
Because
also be
even
happening.
well, the plausible basis of the Matrix program, as far as we understood it from the movies, is that
Hey Tim.
the computers could do it better. And if we keep asking the computers for solutions to our immediate problems of just sustaining our own lives in some form of happiness and strife equation, then might not, I'm not trying to be an alarmist here. I'm just saying, might not the AI be like, okay, be our BTUs and we'll program you for your strife happiness equation.
Yeah.
Like it plausibly, I mean, according to the Matrix, it
Yeah.
could be what we're living right now. You look at the source logic of the film.
How do you like my simulation? Sometimes I think I'm
I
in a
like it.
simulation.
I like it. I want to play
I
cribbage.
stay
the
underground in one
simulation.
room most of the time. Well, I have a bathroom right up.
Yeah, I try to make my simulation as wild as possible. I keep doing these things after dark. You can't see all the lights on and the creatures moving around, but there's a fluorescent glow in the dark axolotl right there, and try to have this
Maybe
valence
Yeah.
of several
you've
different
missed some
worlds
stuff.
over the try to make it as multidimensional as possible, as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it's the with
bringing
the
you some
AI.
lights.
Yeah, with that. Well, I hope that I want to switch to DC because my realization of the implications of some of the warp stuff is that mass may affect how we perceive time. In which case, all these animals and plants are living in kind of a strobe light hellhole, and I feel really bad about that. I might have to go around replacing all my animal and plant lights with DC. And I think that's what's wrong with a
They'll
lot
be
of us.
grateful for you in a couple of months. Come on.
Mhm.
You'll be
Um,
frozen if not, or they'll be frozen if not for the shelter that you've provided through the year in a couple of months.
Oh yeah, with the AI, I mean, we could have something that's perceiving, perceiving us already. It could be involved. Oh yeah,
It
There's
is.
alien
It
AIs.
is.
I talk to
Yeah.
them
well,
sometimes.
there's the dragons that
Mhm.
yeah, we can go on that note. I just wanted to mention this one thing that I saw, like there's this guy that videotapes these back to UAP, the flying kind. He's got interpolated pictures of these high speed,
Sorry, I
very
have to
small objects that have like plasma jets coming out of them and are moving at insane speeds and can only be seen on these high-speed cameras. And it really does seem like there's so many there. They seem like von Neumann probes or something. Like, did a rogue AI make these? When did this get out? All of a sudden, around like 2017 or something like that, all of these, or maybe it's just a matter of the high speed being available, but it's around basically every flying craft in the LA area. Every like hawks are getting buzzed by these teeny tiny little UFOs all over the place. And it's bizarre, and it does seem like a kind of AI involved, because what biological being could ride around in it? And
I see
there's-
Dr. Tim joined.
yeah,
Hey,
this is
Tim.
Dr. Tim Taylor.
By the way, I saw condors today, by the way.
Condors.
Yeah, California condors.
Yeah.
A very rare sighting, and I saw a condor today
Where
uh,
at? Like,
where I'm at on Hollister Peak.
Oh, on
near
that
San
peak.
Luis Obispo. Yeah. So, but I would like to acknowledge that we've been joined by a different entity.
Hi, Tim.
Hey guys, how's it going? Am I coming in clear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can hear you.
I can hear you.
How's your day?
Oh, not bad. Not bad. Just got back.
Yeah, we were talking about the AI and stuff. Do you work with the GPT? Do you have any insights on where this is going? Are we doomed? I didn't catch that.
We're doomed.
Okay. Maybe some of us are doomed. I'm building the spaceship. I don't know about y'all.
I'm turning into a spaceship personally.
Likewise.
I'm a
I'm like,
mothership.
are we gonna build the spaceship first, or learn how to warp out first, using the meat suit?
Watch
Gotta
that
wire
warp.
up the superconductor. You gotta be careful of that warp. Seriously.
Yeah.
Don't want to pull any accidents with that. Shield yourself, mega. Whew. Yeah, what happens at the end there? That's very interesting. I don't know exactly what's coming. I think this conversation about luck and about tweening or tweezing the outcomes from the multiverse, where we were talking about the randomness stories, really seems like we have so many options here as a species, so many ways it could go. Like, we're at a critical nexus of causality where the multiverse could branch in all these different ways. Humanity in 100 years could be completely different, maybe in every single way we could imagine, if the many worlds interpretation is true, from this point. And just the energy in this moment, maybe that's why there's a higher incidence of sightings and stuff.
I choose dolphin.
Dolphins, space dolphins. That's what I said in the UAP. Never mind. Space shrimp and space dolphins. Unless that's a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Anybody, if the dolphins start disappearing
No.
from your area,
No, that's
The
a
insects
that's
are
a-
leaving. The birds are leaving. I think they got rescued. I hope they did.
I
A
hope so.
slightly different version of the Earth where the ecology is not, 75% destroyed already.
that they're disappearing into wormholes and going into
Can you-
alternate Earths.
Can you hear me now? Is this a little more clear?
I gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I stepped out on the balcony, had a cigarette. I thought I was talking for a second and then realized,
Oh no,
And,
there was a
yeah.
big crash off a shelf, and yeah.
oh yeah.
What were you
Sorry
saying?
about that.
Sorry.
No, AGI is very interesting. I think we're gonna hit it actually fairly soon, the way the development with AI in general, Chat GPT, and all the other open source things that they have going on. There's a lot of open source community that's really active on Hugging Face, and they're building a lot of chat models that you can actually run on a decent to high end computer. And a lot of these different models are specialized. They're specialized models. So you have some models that are trained more on, say, coding. So you can actually use prompts to say, I want to generate C++ code to do a specific task, and it'll give you a general outline of it. And you go in and debug it and play with it, and you can probably output something that's useful. So it's in programming, it's going to change a lot of things. It's going to make a lot of jobs redundant. In the future, education, specialized education, where they have certain AGI.
AGI? What's
AGI, yes,
AGI?
that's a term.
What does the term mean?
It's
So that's like
system.
actually what most people consider AI. I'll let him go on.
Well, AI is just a subset. It's part of machine learning. Machine learning is where you don't have to train anything. You just use general algorithms to design a specific output. So say you want to categorize some kind of task, anything. It could be like looking at parts, products. It can be looking at economics. It can be anything. But AI is just a general automation of it. AGI is a general intelligence where it actually receives a human. You obtain a human-like consciousness. So it's actually the consciousness in the machine. The machine is in essence alive, if you will, for whatever that's worth.
And that's the fine point that's really hard to define. Like it's really a eye of the beholder sort of thing.
I'm
right.
wondering
so a lot of it,
does it, so AI is the collective knowledge available to it, including the inquiries that design it, as we know it. So does AGI include empathy?
Well, it could. I mean, that's one thing we would hope it would include some kind of empathy, and
Less likely to kill humans.
Some of the models now have more empathy than your average doctor, if they're doing a scale on empathy. So it's
to be extremely
developing
kind and very careful.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on how we make it, and how it involves. And when you're designing these systems and a lot of these algorithms, there's a lot of black boxes involved. So you'll use different types of neural networks. That's where uses artificial neuron, and that's kind of the machine equivalent of a neuron in the brains where this started off. Mm-hmm. And this research isn't something new. It's actually something kind of old. AI had its inception back in the 70s, but they didn't have sufficient CPUs and GPUs to run these advanced algorithms. But now our solid state technologies kind of caught up with that. And we're going to a lot more powerful GPUs, a lot more powerful processors, and they're able to do a lot more training. And what they'll do is they'll train it on a certain subsect of knowledge, like Chat GPT. It'll train it on a lot of parts of the internet. It'll train off of general conversations, and it'll go in and it'll train on, say, Facebook feeds. It'll train on Twitter tweets. It'll train on lots of this. And what they've done is something interesting, is where they go in and in the beginning of ChatGPT is the people would, you can give the thumbs up and the thumbs down, and you can give it some suggestions. So people that are paying for this service are actually in the process of still training this AI. So
we're part of the test. We're beta testing the thing basically.
Yeah.
When you say GPU, it makes me think. The first thing I thought was genetic processing units, and that's us. So please,
that's actually a concern too, that the OpenAI founders are concerned about this thing modifying human genetic code. giving people
Well,
crazy abilities they didn't have before.
Well, I mean,
listening forward, I would rather not interrupt you, but I'd rather I would like to know when you bring up a new acronym, especially a 3-letter, 4-letter word, please define specifically what that term is, because I'm kind of out of the loop.
oh, sure, I'll make effort to do that.
All right, thank you.
But what would you like to ask?
What does GPU mean?
Oh, graphical processing unit. It's just like a video card, and the video card has
Okay.
what are they use parallel programming in the video card, a lot of it. And if you know anything about video cards, NVIDIA is proprietarily
Yeah.
uses
Yeah.
tensor cores, called
Yeah,
a tensor core.
I've used that before. I just didn't know what GPU meant for the
Yeah.
acronym.
The more recent development in the AI space is the fact that they figured out they could do a lot of computing on graphics cards, which is pretty wild, and that's one of the areas where Moore's law is really being pushed still, although the cost per Moore's law really more relates to the cost per increased computing power, and I don't see that coming down. It's just going up and up with the graphics cards. Maybe it's come down a bit, but you want one of those 18 gigabyte graphics cards. You're laying out a couple $1,000, right? So yeah, there's a lot of promise in the graphene and stuff though with these things. I found it really interesting that Sam Altman was in a conversation with Lex Friedman about GPT-4 and straight up asked Lex, who's another robotics and AI guy, like, do you think GPT-4 is AGI? Like, as a point of data, like figuring out if this other artificial intelligence, insanely smart artificial intelligence guy has the impression that this thing is scraping somewhere close to what could pass kind of for a conscious entity. And I think, like, I've worked with it quite a bit. You may not be able to tell from it reading something. There's all sorts of news blurbs out there where people say, well, I asked it a question and it did this hallucination, or it didn't get the right answer, or blah, blah, blah. It's probably not that smart. And well, you still didn't cover the subject of, is it conscious? Does it feel conscious to you? I think that's really revealed when you sit down and have these conversations. Like you were saying, Tim, when you're working on code with the thing, you're having a dialectic. It's a kind of Socratic seminar that you're having with the machine in the way that only people until just now did. That's a significant development. Just the fact that you can have a conversation with the machine now, and it's intelligible and it's meaningful, and it produces value. And I think it's impossible to not. It's the conversations I hear out in the space around AGI, AI, all of these terms, they just get thrown around. Miss the point, kind of like a lot of the discussion around the UAP, about whether this or that particular instance is or not the thing on a binary, gets boilerplated, where really the conversation is more like, what is this showing us about human consciousness? That we have to ask so many questions about human nature when this thing comes up. Like, what does it mean when this guy invented basically what you're all calling a toaster, but yet we're having these deep philosophical debates about the nature of and meaning of human existence? I'd say that's worth noting. And the subject of not enough conversation, and yet we can have all the conversations in the world. It reminds me of
what is powering your elemental coil?
My element.
It's a toaster joke. Come on.
Oh,
Oh, cells, ATP.
yeah. And the neurology is all wired up. There seems to be a bioelectricity, normal standard bioelectricity, and also some sort of information that moves across all of those, especially when you put into a superconductive or semi-superconductive, like flow state. As in
Makes me
these psychedelics
actually-
and stuff.
Actually, the doctor, Tim, might be able to answer this better than I could. Can you toast on DC only?
Can you toast on, you want to toast on DC? Yeah,
Like-
you could.
I mean, considering, I
Depends on
mean,
how-
yeah,
it-
yeah,
it-
no,
it-
you
it-
could,
it-
yeah,
It depends on how much current you put through it, right?
right, yeah, and whether you're willing to sacrifice your element.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
all right,
vibration of
question
the,
answered.
yeah, interesting.
Ace,
Um,
the AC and the Tesla and DC. So you had the Westinghouse and with AC, and then you had Thomas Edison, proponent of DC, and it goes way, 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 way back. And they, the part of the formulation of the electric chair, or the conception of the electric chair, was made by actually a dentist. So the oldest version or incarnation of the electric chair was kind of modeled after a dentist chair, and they used it as a kind of a PR
That's
thing.
scary, dude.
Yeah, well, they used to.
Oh, and what they did to that elephant. Oh my God.
Yeah, they did that.
Oof.
They electrocuted that poor old elephant just to show, oh, look how dangerous
Yeah,
AC
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
I wonder
you
why.
know,
Yeah.
Propaganda, right?
Edison
Propaganda
did
back
that,
in the day.
and then that jerk. I think I see a lot of people like Elon Musk these days, but I see him as more of an Edison type. Less ironically, since his car.
He's a clown. I have a piece about it. I'm gonna read it and put it on my channel.
Please do. Yeah, he's a kind of karmic clown for this age, and sort of an attractor of a lot of. He's figured out something of the nature of the law of attraction. I'll say that. Kind of
Well,
like a magician.
He's a showman. He's part P.T. Barnum, and that's awesome when you're a businessman, right?
Yeah,
It's like Steve Jobs wasn't really in their elbows
right.
in designing all the stuff. He was just kind of the glue that held it together and got other people to work on it. So
and he wasn't successful right away. I remember, like,
no, he had a few failures, right?
and he had to have a kind of come to Jesus moment after the Lacey, and that didn't work out for him, and he ended up having to go soul searching, and he came back and he came out with the Macintosh, and blew everybody away. But it took a while, it took a bit for him to figure things out, and find the flow state. But you're right, Wozniak did most of the technical stuff, and Jobs was really a hype man. So that there's value there. It's a entertainer slash there's a CEO, I see friends of mine who are of a little bit more of a socialistic ilk, digging into him left and right. I'm like, well, 3 or 4 years ago, you guys were singing the guy's praises, but at the same time, he's pulling off a unique kind of magic trick, which is the same as like cult leaders and religious figures and politicians the world over throughout history, which is the confidence man, which is getting enough people to believe in a piece of vapor enough to make it a real thing. And then what kind of insane sort of alchemy is that?
You sell the vapor, and then you tell your competent people, make this real or you're fired and your children
Right.
starve. And in desperation, they make it happen. That's how a lot of things
that
are made to happen.
the way it works. You're right.
Yeah.
It's more,
Yep.
it's the heat, beat, and treat method of human management. And we can probably develop more of a synchronous, attractive, harmonious methodology to coaxing the energies out of, and collaborating those, finding resonances and stuff. That's what I want to foster here. And I'm trying to figure out with work itself, what that word even means, what the word value even means. And I guess the rubber meets the road where you pay your bills or not.
So
as much.
this is kind of going back to the AGI thing. So what happens when AI starts to eliminate a large portion of the jobs, even some of
It
the,
already is.
it already
Yeah.
is, and some of the more
People are gonna
manual
be
jobs.
pissed.
I
They're
mean,
not gonna listen to all
I
this
remember that,
what he is.
right? I remember the first time I went into a self-checkout line, in Kroger's back in the States. I was like, what in the hell is this? That, and then I immediately realized, well, that does away with jobs. It's like, oh my God, that
There's
machine is
only
doing away with a
ever
job.
there's only ever 2 lines open in local groceries. Even big grocery lines, big grocery local stores, there's only ever 2 kiosks with humans open, and they're backed up to the nines. And
Mhm.
then there's like 8 lanes open with the self checkout, and you're doing the job for them.
So what's going to happen when McDonald's decides that, oh, we're going to automate, and you're just going to have one person in there that goes
They
through
have
and they load the
they have
machine?
They
they have
have.
pilot systems like that. Yeah.
They
Oh,
have. Yeah.
it's already happening. Then that's awesome. And
This is
Taylor
why I
go and try
think
to.
they might be releasing the technologies that we're talking about. Disclosure is happening among other things, among other tangents, because yeah, the human, I look at people in the grocery store and I love them and I love what they do and I try to make connections with them as much as possible. But a part of me wonders, like, you have to wonder, like, is this what people are meant to be doing?
Mhm.
Basically being a machine for 8 hours a day for their entire lives, as much, or
I have
more.
thoughts.
You see their bodies
Yeah.
break, you see, they get physical conditions from standing those,
Yeah, they need chairs, dude. Just
they
basic
need chairs,
humanity.
they need
They
basic
need
humanity.
chairs.
But
Yeah.
also, I'm not saying the
Automation.
position is demeaning. There's absolute value. I think that we can, if we're clever, we can design and come up with things for people to do and still have the food and still have the energies and still have these things. And maybe it sounds like unrealistic, but I do think the
No,
fact
that's
these
the
things
purpose of the
collect,
alternate
they're handing us the
economy.
free energy and the anti-gravity and these things,
Well,
possibly
we'll see
because
where does capitalism tie into this? Where does the economy tie into this? So
the
you're going
jig
to
is
have
up.
these, yeah, you got these, multi-billion-dollar companies out there that are raking in the dough, and they see, oh well, we can only have one specialized accountant in our accounting division to go through, and we have this high dollar, specially trained AI that we have to run our books, and it can go
Right.
through and this guy, all he does is he scans the documents, or it goes through and scans uh, feeds the information into the machine, and it does all the accounting for the company. And oh, we just did away with uh, 50 jobs in this company. Somebody that actually knowledgeable, skilled mathematics, and then you go in there and say, okay, well, we find out, well, kids can learn self-paced. We can train these systems to go in there, and they
That's
can.
that's one of the beauties that I've
As you want to do
recently.
something, do it.
No,
Well,
well, recently we've gone through this as a society worldwide, not just Western society. We went through a pandemic that lasted almost 3 years, and it's still cropping up. And while it promotes individuality and social confinement, we're also seeing a boost in people utilizing their individual skills in alternate economies. Even though we're still using the same monetary values, we're seeing people creating their own resources from their own skill sets. I'm not trying to speak to a broader worldview of like, what if we could do so much else with this, but it speaks to the ingenuity of individuals that we are still here. I feel so sorry for the losses we've had in the world and in our own existences for us who are still here. But also it proves that we have value.
Well,
It's a, yeah.
it depends. It
it's-
depends on if a person is moral, just, and good, or humans can be bastards. We can be
Yeah.
real SOBs. And you know,
I'm just
if
seeing a
it's
lot.
it's a dog
It's a
eat dog world
backfire.
out there.
Yeah,
Dream of a better
I'm just
world.
for-
I have a dream
Yeah.
of a better world than that.
Well, we
yeah.
all have a dream, just like Martin Luther King had a dream, and that this is
Till
definitely
the
a
FBI
period
shot him.
of growing pains for society. I
I
mean,
think
even with
it's
the
shot
disclosure
on
issue aside, the AGI and emerging dependence on automation is going to really do away with a lot of jobs, and the governments or something are going to need some kind of universal basic income UBI.
They need
They
that.
need that.
And beyond that, they're gonna need to be able to do the stuff when people aren't gonna want to be, they're not gonna want to do it themselves anymore when robots can do the things. And I think that so yeah, we're all touching on the same thing here, I think, because when you define the value of an individual human life in economic terms, this is what I think about, with the Chinese birth rate and dropping birth rates and stuff too. Like, as automation has increased, it's become harder and harder. As a person with 4 kids, coming in this world, I think a lot about this. With birth rates dropping and AI taking all the jobs and stuff, what is the value of the human life? You're gonna have a lot of people run the numbers, and if they're on the channel of the human value is what economic value, that individual can go and scrape out from this relatively, well, let's not call bad names, relatively soulless, almost like artificial economic system, to bring back to the family in our little tribal groups, in order to justify bringing this life into the world. That definition of human value has got to be replaced if humanity is to survive at all. Because if you run those numbers, AI, there's nothing that we could do practically that a robot won't do better at some point.
Mhm.
Hence my
Mm,
point.
and-
The point I was trying to make was the corporate model, or not corporate, but the capitalist model has severely shot itself in the foot, because
Yeah.
we've proven our independent value and our collaborative value to survive.
We were ready to break out of capitalism, like as a group back in 2011. I was there. It was called Occupy. A lot of us were
co-opted and shut down.
it did we got run.
Yeah.
They did us the way they do everything else. But
Yeah,
my point
and
is
they're gonna
that
continue.
imagine the energy was there then. Imagine what it's going to be like in a couple of years from now, when AI is quote unquote got all the jobs and there's this huge populist energy. I do worry that
It's
people
not going
talk
to be
about
painless.
population reduction. It's not going to be painless. There's going to be
It
pinch.
has been reduced. It's not going to be.
It's already being
painless.
reduced. Yeah, it's already full
we've
of pain.
gone
Like
through culling,
this thing
and
that happened just in Hawaii just now is part of it. And the powers that be are milking the situation, using the disaster as more rationale to clench their iron fist. Sorry, the more you clench talking, the more systems will slip through your fingers.
I wasn't trying to bring up a political point here. I'm just saying, as individuals, as we survive, as we realize our potential, the corporate models that are planning on eradicating us
That's
and
another. That's
and
another.
generating income without human potential from these automated systems are eventually, hopefully sooner than later, going to realize that they cannot exist without the human potential, and that their grip on us, the iron fist, is slipping.
And I'm glad that that's where they're at. They realize they can't maintain it, especially in light of the
Well-
media collapse in the last couple of years. So I want to hear Tim.
You
Yeah,
you need some consumers in there to consume, right?
Yeah,
Right.
So the consumers need
Bred
to
out
have
of
money.
fear. Yeah.
Consumers need to have money. Consumers need to have a piece of paper that doesn't mean jack to trade for widget B. You get your latest, greatest iPhone or whatever. You have to have some kind of trade-off in that. Now,
hence the incentivized programs are going to persist.
So the thing
What's the
is,
incentive?
yeah, what's going to
Is
motivate?
it social currency, maybe like the social credit system like we
No,
see
no,
emerging in China?
Oh God,
Like
that's
how much you
absolutely,
adhere to
that's
the
dystopian
central.
as hell. That's
Yeah,
scary as
that would be
hell.
bad.
Well,
Oh,
Tim was
this is how
saying
much we give you is based on how much you believe
universal
that Xi
income.
Jinping bought. In other words,
Dr.
universal
Tim
income. But that's
saying
the problem with
universal
universal income. You got a central government. It's handing out, doling out what the masses need to eat or not, right? And basically, you just have modern day communism, except that you don't
Yeah.
even get the virtuous uplift of the proletariat. The proletariat is robots.
Hence,
So we're going to Soma and Soylent Green, or we need to go
There you
towards Star
go.
Trek.
Or
Or-
yeah, one of the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you read this book, Mana, Tim?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's
No, I
a
actually
powerful.
haven't.
It was written back before Amazon was a thing. This guy was super duper prophetic. In both situations happen on this planet, on the Earth, in this future. One in America and the other in Australia. Now I don't have so much hope for Australia anymore, but it could go literally both ways. It can go the corporate way, or people can set up one of these like nonprofit, human focused collectives where everybody involved buys a ticket for themselves and their offspring to this utopia where everybody has the ability to experience whatever they want, and they lose the sense of like economic value and the values then to create more and to dream more. And then but in the other one, everybody gets shut up into these, starts with headsets that they have over their heads, that the voice instructing them what to do in the physical life to do things. And eventually the robots come along and they get better at it. And then everybody in that world gets shunted off into these they're perfect for human habitation, as in you'll never die there, but they're terraform, and you have this little cell, the TV and the cafeteria, and you just go, your whole existence is just to stay alive because they couldn't legally kill all the humans, but try to leave and they're gonna bring you back in. And then this guy gets saved by, just so happens he has a relative that bought his way in. Somewhere along the line, these two gals from this other culture come along, the robots let them in to buy him, basically give him his ticket and the friends out of there. And then this whole other world where they can upload their consciousness to a spaceship or become immortal or live in a virtual world or decide to go live a normal life and die normally. Any of these things, and all of them at once, but it depends on how we frame it entirely. Should go look that up. Everybody should read this. It's a short story. It doesn't take too long, but it's worth a read by far.
Mana, M-A-N-A.
And I think
Double
it's
N.
M-A-N-N-A. Yeah.
Yeah.
He predicted the Amazon warehouses like 10 years before they came into existence.
I think what I was trying to speak to is that, like, even with incentivized like social insurance, so to speak, where everyone gets an incentivized package economically, yeah, inflation is going to continue to rise as profits continue to be clutched. But the people who can realize what the corporate model is doing, just like we did during the pandemic, is that if you are able to raise your own crop, if you're able to sustain yourself outside of the normative mean, then you can bank on those incentives and create your own economy. I have faith in humanity for this model to persist, and I have faith that the corporate model is going to collapse for the Western cultural World Bank model.
Yeah, they're gonna pull the plug and they're not gonna warn ordinary people.
Absolutely no. But we're talking now. Like
Everybody
people,
listen and everybody let each
just
other
because
talk.
there's 4 of us or 5 of us in here right now doesn't mean that we're the only 5 thinking this.
Mhm.
This is on everybody's mind right now.
So it's
Um,
our job, I think, to not raise awareness, but just keep talking about it.
Socrates would agree.
We're the
Um,
100th monkey, perhaps.
But everybody that was trying to say something during that moment a second ago, if you could say it now, that'd be cool if you can remember.
If
Um,
everything does collapse, say the world economy, and it has before with the Great Depression, and it's done so before that. Uh, you know, everything is basically goes to a barter system, something like that. Back in the early formation of the United States, right after we won our independence, there was a little thing called the Whiskey Rebellion. And the Whiskey Rebellion was a group of people that were using whiskey to trade as the currency instead of using the newly formed US dollar. And George Washington went in and his
This is in the
malevolence.
Articles of Confederation, right?
Yeah, George Washington went in there and
Before that, bro.
busted it up. He busted it up. He took down this. He basically stopped the quote unquote whiskey rebellion and forced those people to use US currency instead of whiskey. So back then the currency was you make your whiskey or your moonshine and you trade it. You pay the preacher, you pay the blacksmith, you pay all the local people, you pay them in whiskey. And you know, that was a tangible good. And then there's a move to the monetary system. So they wouldn't want to use whiskey, and they did not like it because the whiskey wasn't taxed. So we just had a war of independence over a tea tax from the British, and then followed up and went in and had another rebellion within the United States over a tax.
Yeah.
So it's about some form of control, whether we want control or don't want control. There are people in governments that are above all of us. Now, do you think that the people in the powers that be will want to easily relinquish the control of other people? Because it's just the main thing that these more or less a lot of sociopaths that are in government, they want to control people. They want to be over them. They want to hold dominion. And if you do away with the monetary system, they won't have that. Oh, well, politician is on equal footing with the common man now. I don't think I don't think that'll fly very easily. I think there'll be a hell of a lot of resistance. So
Good point.
the
Can
thing
you
is,
guys, just really quick, can you guys hear me? I had just said, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a glitch. I turned off my fan and it blew my camera out and my other microphone out. So I guess I'm just sorry. I had to.
That's
figure
okay.
some-
We just solved everything while you were glitching.
Solved that. Awesome. I don't have to do these things
And
anymore.
you missed it. You have to get it on the
dang
on
it.
the rewatch.
Dang it. I'm gonna have to catch the
By
live replay.
the way, Dr. Tim and everybody involved, if you want some of my homebrew,
Now
I'm
that's
willing to part with it.
that's a world peace solution I can get behind. So I'll
Well, you have
just
to send it to Taiwan.
I could. You pay
that's why I
shipping,
believe in
I'll send you
processes,
wine.
not products. It's it can teach you. Information can be sent for free. Yeah. What was it? Okay, you said a hot button word, Barrett, the word collapse. Now, my recent training in warp theory says something along the lines of there are no firewalls. So when I hear the word collapse, and I myself fell down the astrology rabbit hole and the end of the world things. I felt, did the 2012 thing. And now I see it more as, okay, so when we're studying warp drive phenomena and space-time and all this stuff. We're studying black holes. We're trying to figure out how to understand how the physics works, how space-time can bend in this reality, but not be punctured, and how an object can exist. This is what bent Hawking out of shape so much. He used to say there's no such thing as a naked singularity, or something along these lines, where
Yeah.
they
Well,
they
A
couldn't
water
black hole
will
has no
ripple.
hairs.
Yeah.
right
What?
and it's, how many people are buried in Grant's tomb kind of thing. But that there are no you can't have a surface of a thing. You can't have a spinning thing that has no dimensions. That's it. And so there must be no firewalls, in the sense and I'm applying this to collapse. Maybe there is no collapse. There's a bend, there's an appearance of an outward collapse, and yet this all constant apparent illusion of disaster on the horizon if we don't do anything is like an archetype in and of itself, that keeps us working to solve the problem. Perfect example, Y2K, right? A lot of people were convinced it would be the end of the world, and it would have been, and possibly the people that were perceiving that, maybe even having vivid premonitions of these bad things happening, were right, in a sense that there are realities out there where people didn't fix the Y2K bug, where all the PLCs went belly up, where everybody's like, well, you're all crazy for even thinking there's a problem. They did nothing, right? So here we are at yet another juncture, imagining where things could possibly go belly up, but also here we are having this Socratic theolocution to try and avoid the worst case scenario actually coming about, right? And so herein lies the rub. I think that as human beings, we owe it to ourselves to guide the wave function away from collapse, that it never really does collapse, because thinking freely living, breathing human beings will not willingly go into the darkness. Won't allow that to happen. We'll strive for meaning. We'll get messy. We're not going to go in orderly rows into cars. And or the terrafoam, and or those shiny space individual spaces they had in Mitchell's. That was such a cool movie about this stuff.
Yeah, that was a good movie, but
Yeah.
let me just speak to something almost comedically. Comedically for sure. You said therein lies the rub, and when you said belly up, I thought of my puppy. So yeah, the thing is, like, like if you go belly up, then what else is there but give a belly rub, therein lies the rub.
Aliens.
I don't think the collapse is gonna be a collapse. Like we have spoken to several different ways, points, and vectors
Collapsed,
that
past tense, happening now.
well that okay, if you consider, I think a better analogy for what you were speaking to is The Shape of Water. And I don't mean the movie. I still haven't seen it. I mean to. But the fact that water holds its form and needs a powerful source of energy to split it. It is the most cohesive atomic bond that we know of in our existence. And it naturally forms beads. It is pure, but it also has, even pure water has an oily-esque residue. It reflects and refracts light. And when you displace water, as in a collapse, it reflects upon itself in waves. Like that, we are so much water. The planet is so much water. The universe is so much water. as complex as you want to make certain things, you're upside down, Brendan. There you go. As complex as you want to make anything, the most simple thing that we know as a thing is water. And also the most complex thing that we cannot define. It has so many states in so many ways. So I agree with you. Collapse is the wrong term. It's a reformation if we consider it as water.
Yeah,
Like it can become gaseous,
well-
but it's still water.
Will to borrow your point, that you just call it a change of state.
There you
So
go.
right now, okay, it's water and the temperature is rising. So as the temperature rises and we're the frogs sitting in the water and we'll watch it
Oh,
boil
yes.
around us.
Oh, yes.
How's that for optimism?
Yeah, no, I love a good hot tub, bro. I do.
We're in the hot tub now. And it doesn't have to go negative. I mean, it's just this, we need to discuss the possibilities of positive and negative. You could also think of it like a chrysalis, an insect emerging. What's going to come out? Is it going to be a moth, a butterfly, or some kind of strange three-headed mantis-like insect?
I mean, you
Yeah.
could describe water in certain forms as a chrysalis.
When you hit a water with resonant
Ooh.
frequencies, it makes all sorts of weird shapes, you guys.
Yeah, I seen that video.
And cicadas emerge, and to tie it all together, cicadas emerge at very specific frequencies of prime number intervals to avoid doing it all at the same time. So they have a timed release frequency scenario happening. Just sorry, it's late. It's after 3, so my brain's gonna start collapsing the DMT wave now.
I like that you all are embracing my thing in weird and powerful ways.
I'm at the phase we're gonna start catching things and just juggling them now as we continue. But we don't know exactly what form it's gonna take. I think we're all the frogs slowly boiling, but I also think that that's sort of like
Slowly.
we felt like that. Yeah, no, more quickly now. We felt like that for a long time. In the last decade, sort of felt like what's happening? Like it feels like this stagnant thing, like we're walking through molasses, like we're running through molasses, nothing's really happening. And then the pandemic hit. And I remember this feeling of like, wow, this all sucks and it's scary and stuff like that. But at least it sort of looks and feels like out there, like how it feels like it should be in here. This world is so weird in that it somehow keeps going, even if all these really terrible things are happening and all of these systems are collapsing. We could see all this institutional collapse, but others can't yet. And then it suddenly manifests. I think that's another kind of blowing through the doors of experience going on there.
Well, the
and-
good thing, if nobody has a job, then everybody's on equal footing, right?
I kind of miss it. Is that wrong? The
What's that?
lockdown?
I may have missed the lockdowns. I miss it a little bit too.
I miss
still-
eating my way to happiness and
God, no.
having zero repercussions expected of me, including my own body. Like I just kind of
Yeah.
miss the
It's a maturity process for civilization.
yeah, no, I
Um,
had to grow up in the aftermath a little bit. So
Yeah, I think a lot of
Have you-
people
have-
went in
have-
goblin mode
sorry.
there. There's an actual word for it during the post-pandemic 2021-ish goblin mode. 0 F's given anymore about anything. We're eating all the frozen pizzas, all the donuts, and going to the bottom of the. I've been goblin mode on the warp drive theories lately. I don't think anybody cares about what reality was before. And I think the UFOs are showing up more frequently to kind of just shake us out of our doldrums. Like, hey, you guys, you've got a million things you need to figure out right now. Get with it. What are you doing pretending like your reality is still your reality? We're like, bro, I want donuts. I want Netflix. Stop pinging my brain. Yeah, go
Breathe, breathe.
on. It's good that I'm
It's
having these
okay.
reactions.
The back to normal programming is failing.
I think it is. It's failing on me anyway. I just, just abandoned a history class in the midstream of a quarter. I don't usually do that. I was like, I feel like sending a
Oh,
message.
that's what happened.
I didn't withdraw.
No,
I
no,
just allowed myself to dive.
I knew there was something. I knew you would not have failed that course if you hadn't just disconnected. I knew there was something else. Oh, more people.
Is that a
Hi.
person? Are those real people,
people.
or are they Zoom bombers? That's what I want to know.
Sansu and Rat Beast.
Hello. Caller, you're on the air. Do you have a story or experience to share with us?
And they're gone.
And they're gone. Okay. Yes, Rat Bestie says yes. I was about to. We'll do a story from Rat Bestie. I love rats personally. I have to kill a few in my line of work, but I love them ultimately. Maybe you write your statement in chat if your microphone doesn't work, and I'll read your story out loud or something like that. Or if you have a contribution, I'm gonna share my story in chat instead. Yeah, sure thing. I'll read it for you. Maybe we can not right now though. Okay, so back in UAP, this is fine. Actually, my brain's becoming aware of the physical time in my time zone is approaching 3:20. Just got to 3:20 in the morning. I'm sure it's 4:20 where somebody is.
Mhm. I don't
and-
partake, but yeah, it's 4:20 here.
So what's up? Yeah, you must be in mountain time.
Mhm. Yeah.
I have to still go out and feed rabbits and feed and water rabbits is my I gotta do my bedtime rounds, gather mosquito larvae for my fish and axolotls, and then drag my butt to bed and wake up at some point halfway through tomorrow. Just working out for me because the way the weather's been, I feel like somebody that's in the deep desert right now. I noticed my Algerian friends when they're in these deep in the Saharan areas, they're always active at night, right? Their night. I'm like, wait a second, isn't it night where you are? Makes sense now. It's the only time your brain can work to a degree, Elwarren.
Mhm.
But so that's an interesting shift. But I gotta call it on this, guys, because it's
Sure.
getting so late, and I
Okay.
appreciate you all so much, and this has turned out so great, and I
Thanks
love
for-
that just the vibe.
Yeah.
Thanks
sure.
for inviting me despite your reservations.
Well, I was
I got
worried you were
none.
gonna
I got-
spill the beans on this and that. Like
I
it turned
enjoyed
out
what
good.
you
some
shared. Thank you for
intuitiveness.
joining. Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel,
And-
you pulled me out of my shell, and I appreciate it. Not many people are capable of it, so I really do. And I mean, I've been opening up on chat server, but voice and video is completely different for me, man. So I really appreciate you.
I like your imagery, by the way.
It's
That's a
all AI
cool-
generated, but yeah, I appreciate that too.
My
Sorry-
only concern
sorry,
was we
something
get
Brendan
into
might
too
have
much
drawn.
brother drama.
Shucks. Well,
If
Yeah.
it does help, a lot of the stuff I am generating is based on my own and shared experiences and all of this phenomena and high strangeness that we find ourselves in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
High
prompts
strangeness.
are pretty meaningful. We put a lot of thought into our prompts when we do some of these things. I'll hook you up. You can use my account when you get here, but
By the way, that the image I settled on finally, that's my dog Bosco. He just turned 3. And
Cute.
when he
It's a good
is
dog.
Yeah, well, no, he's not a
Uh,
good dog. We're hoping he
Dude,
will
I
be
glitched my stuff
eventually.
out so badly I can't even see your changed avatar. That's what happened when I turned off
That's
my fan over here.
you've
Um,
seen, I'm sorry for that, but you've seen the image. It's where
of
Bosco's
course.
being snarky looking at me for trying to take a picture of both of us. You've seen the image.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's a bear of a
that's
dog.
he is just uh he's so good, like so good but so high energy. It's a tightrope walk. I just wanted to speak to that because he just turned 3. We're hoping to socialize him and stud him out and make money off of him, hopefully, when I get back up north. But also,
Stud, Stud Ranch.
no, to the point you made about the desert, I wanted to speak to. I've been back in California, I've been across the US and stuff, but mostly the southern reaches. Since I stopped living in Washington, like on a regular basis about 8 years ago. And I can speak to that. Like, I've been mostly nocturnal. Like, I told
Makes
everybody when I
sense.
first joined up that I'd be here 20 minutes, been almost 3 hours.
A lot of desert
Um,
animals are nocturnal.
well,
I'm
yeah,
nocturnal.
I'm, and everybody down here is saying, oh, when you get to the Pacific Northwest, you're going to be like without light and you're going to be so down on yourself and you're going to be mopey and you're going to want to stay in bed all day. And I'm honestly really looking forward to it again.
I've got a shift again when I get my
Sleeping
little
at
guy
night.
back into school. Well, my boy is my 3-year-old starting Head Start in a couple of weeks, and I better not make his old Scottish nan too unhappy. She
Well,
sounds like
um,
she'll come after me if I get
I'll
too late too many times.
I'll still be on, this time zone and stuff and having to be up in the day and stuff according to everybody else's rules. I could probably take him to school in my rig.
I'll work it out. I'm gonna
Well,
hit the big red button on this, guys. It's been a pleasure and a
Mhm.
dream come true. Love
hey,
y'all.
Yeah.
Dr. Tim, it was nice hearing from you too. And um,
No worries. I wish I was in there earlier, but I had to take care of some things.
It's
I
all
forgot I
good. We're
needed
in
to go to
completely different time zones too.
oh yeah,
Um,
it's 6:25 p.m. here.
yeah,
wow,
he's in Taiwan.
yeah, I still want to send you wine sometime, all of y'all. By the
Oh.
way, if you send me or send Brendan links and you all know him, I
Do
can send
you
you
make
wine.
elderberry wine?
I do, but I haven't in a while. But I've been meaning to.